Ulonka tabati yada to ye ko madaifa. Inu to ye ko jeun. Ulon fi bipa. Obatala, obatakutakun. Songo Eshu, Ogun Oya Osun. Kini ṣẹ̀ṣe tán ṣe nílé yìí o. Ó jẹ́ lọ jára rẹ̀.
Alafia, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha and today we have on the brother, the Baba Khepera, Sirius. Welcome to the program. Welcome to these Ashe streets, man. How you doing today, Baba?
Good, Baba. Good. I'm doing well. I'm making moves, always, moving on the journey. Hence, Khepra, transformation, constantly come into the being.
Yes, sir. So, listen, we just finished talking. Look, Khepra came up on the last call I had earlier today, man. So it's like we definitely have a lot of divine alignment going on. A lot of divine alignment, man, for sure.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what's up. So let me ask you this, because we got introduced by a mutual source, very powerful being. Shout out to the Wunam, for making the connection, man. I give thanks for that, and for the ancestors for all this happening in divine alignment, and it's been something that's been in the works for a while, and things come up, life happens, life be life, and try to block it, but we're here now. We're ready to get this thing cracking. So before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to the tribe, shout out to the new subscribers, shout out to the new community members, and shout out to everybody who's been holding us down with the love and support, man. We definitely give thanks. We appreciate each and every last single one of y'all, and every single comment, like, share, subscribe. All of it means something, and it's helping us grow, and it's helping us elevate to the next level, man. So with that, I give thanks in the Mudupe, and we're ready to get this thing cracking, Baba. So with your journey, I feel like we got a lot of similarities, in regards to our journeys, but they've already heard mine. I don't know how many times. I'm probably tired of it. But with you, how did you get into your spiritual journey? Like, what was your first phase? When we talk about this thing called spirituality, and I know you have a Comedic background, but also an Isheshe background. So, like, how did your journey begin when you got tapped into spirit and spirituality?
Yeah, well, when I was really young, I used to always have all these interesting conversations with my dad, but I had a lot of let's say experiences that I was in the church, and of course you may know the story. A lot of times we're having these experiences, and a lot of times the pastor, they may have an idea that, oh, there's something about you, but they can't really tell you what it is, and they can't really explain to you what's going on, because it may take them away from the doctrine that they're trying to feed you. So, but I was having all kind of things happen to me. I couldn't explain it. I would see all this stuff in the dark. People would tell me it was just a stack of clothes in a chair, and I'm like, no, it's not. I'm seeing something. Ancestors were coming to me. I was seeing like symbols of the Ankh at night, right, in the dark. All that was happening, and I used to be scared. I used to be scared out of my wits. There was times I was having sleep paralysis. I discovered that I could move beyond my physical body, all that, right? So I wanted some answers. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. The church wasn't able to help a brother. My father, well, he had been into a lot of things. He had been in theosophy. He had also been in the Nation of Islam. He had told me about my grandmother. One of his favorite stories is my grandmother, or my great-grandmother, how she was a Vodou priestess by night, Catholic by day, and how she had taught him a lot of things. So more questions, right? So I decided I was going to go on my spiritual journey, because I wanted to see, well, what is all this stuff about? My father had been down with the Nation of Islam at one point in time too. So I decided to journey into the Nation of Islam. And at the time it was like the 90s. And you remember all that hip hop, they was always talking about Islam. There's the 5% nation of gods and earth and everything else. So I took that route for a while, but eventually I wanted to get more into the mystical aspects. So I started getting I got into the Shiite Islam. I got into Sufism and things of that nature. And to make a long story short, I kept on finding myself pulled to the symbol that I used to see when I was a child, which happened to have been an Ankh. So I started seeing that symbol more and more. I decided I was going to get more into Kemet, right? So, a lot of times people you know, especially when we're seeking our heritage and everything else, they come in through that route, you know, and not to say I didn't want to look for that part of it, but I was interested in, you know, what was happening to me. So I decided I was going to look into that. I started, I ran into a person who had told me that he was a Mormon, right? This was a brother, by the way. And he would tell me about all these things, the experiences that I was having. He was talking about the beings of light and everything else. And I guess he had got out of Mormonism and he had been expanding his consciousness as well. So he told me about the Egyptian Book of the Dead. He told me to read it. He told me to study the Great Pyramid, you know, and he told me to look into these things. It looked like the more I got into it, the more phenomena I began to have. So I had this time in which I was laying in the bed. This was broad daylight. This was the first time this happened in broad daylight. I had sleep paralysis, right? Next thing you know, I see myself looking through the eyes of a panther or a leopard. I could see myself looking through its eyes. And then everything was engulfed with light. And I felt a peace that you cannot even describe. So I literally tried to go back into that state. They would not let me. Just like, nope, you have to earn this. You know, you can't have this. You got to earn this. So what ended up happening is I started getting into all kind of metaphysical research. I got into UFOs. I got into studying about ghosts, reincarnation, all of that. My dad had books on Kabbalah laying around. He had been a theosophist, like I said. He didn't just you know, look into Islam, but he also knew a little bit about Vodou. And one of his favorite books that he used to deal with was the 6 and 7 books of Moses, right? So this opened up my mind quite a bit. So I kind of had practiced Islam to a degree, but I still wasn't all the way hooked. You know, something was nudging me to go further. Because I'm painting outside the lines, you know. I'm studying deities, I'm into all that stuff. Everything that they call shirk, I was looking into it, right? So one day I had an issue when I had to go to the school, and I wanted to get somebody to help me out because I got in trouble. I was in trouble because I got caught with a firearm without a license. And I ran into a Puerto Rican brother by the name of Michael. He had me come to his house. And, you know, we started talking about some things. And I was like, well, what can you do to help me? Because I need some help here, you know, if you can like vouch for my character. And I thought that's all it was going to be. We hung out and he opened up the cabinet. He swallowed some or drank some rum or something and sprayed it in the cabinet. I looked at him, I said, what kind of voodoo shit is that? Bro, you just opened up the cabinet, you just spit in the cabinet, what you doing? You know? And he said, oh, this is a leg bar. I said, a leg bar? Huh? Okay, I want to know more. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, oh, is this the same stuff that my grandma was practicing? You know what I mean? So he had these pictures of all these Orishas everywhere. I saw he had like a dried up pumpkin on his cabinet. And I guess that was an offering to Oshun. And he had pictures of a mermaid, which was Yemaya. And all these things were in his apartment. And I wanted to know more about it. Right. He gave me some literature on Catholicism and the church. And it had nothing to do with what I mean, it was limited. It wasn't touching what I wanted to find. Right. So I was calling him. It's like he retreated. So, you know, I guess that was the end of my journey with him. He kind of got my curiosity kind of, you know, moving in that direction. So maybe a couple of years later, I met a brother by the name of Steve. You know, Steve Venturina. You know, he's kind of known in the Lukumi community. Shout out to brother Steve. Anyway, we get together, we'd study. By that time I had rounded for our men's first volume of the Meta Netter, volume 1. And we saw where there was a connection, right?
That's powerful work.
Indeed.
Yes, sir. You way further along than me. So listen, but just from the little dab that I tapped in, I'm like, oh yeah, there's some presentations coming up off that thing, boy, for real, for real. And I'm only in volume 1, the first part of volume, like maybe not even barely about halfway through volume 1, the first one. And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be making some presentations off of that alone. You know what I mean? Because if 1 is that powerful and that deep, I can't even imagine when I get to 2 and 3 what that's gonna be like. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but that I was like, that's a profound piece of work. Like I'm happy about that one. I can't wait to get it done for real.
Oh man, you know, I'm gonna tell you something. I couldn't put that book down.
Yeah.
I read that book. I kept on flipping it. I got the card deck. I was reading, doing readings on myself. The pages started falling out, so I had to get another copy. And
well, you went ham with that day, man.
Oh yeah, I went ham, right? I got into the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you know what I mean? I got the pyramid text. I started studying Naim Akbar, Dr. Ben, and all that around that time, right? And then you know, then I went to my first Misa, right? And a Misa is kind of like a seance. And they started telling you about some things and, you know, who you are and things that you got to deal with. I went my first Misa and I met, I think a Puerto Rican sister and a Cuban sister. I think it was Maria and Rosa. Anyway, they were connected to the brother Steve. Steve introduced me to them. And they gave me my first D Lagoon reading. And at first they told me, hey, you know, you might want to explore this a little bit more, you know, and told me a couple of things that I was going through, you know. So at first I was like, okay, this is cool. I was fascinated. I went and got another reading, you know, from a sister named Bobby Suspettis, and she's in the Bay Area. Beautiful woman, beautiful sister. And she told me, she was the first to tell me, hey, you have a path in the priesthood in this tradition, right? You know, so my brother, he ended up getting initiated before I did. At the time, I had reservation about blood sacrifice and everything else because I was mainly doing like breathing exercises and chants and so forth. So, you know, he ended up getting initiated. I ended up getting my warriors, right? And this was in maybe 2000. I ended up going to Iraq, and I decided I was going to go ahead and at least get my warriors because, you know, the community felt that I needed protection. So I got my warriors. I was told to take Ogun with me, so I took his Otan with me. I carried that with me to Iraq, and I had some pretty interesting phenomena. I mean, it's to the point that I almost got hit with a shell from a mortar, and it didn't even go off, right?
Wow.
And yeah, missile. Somebody shot an RPG my way. It missed, hit the generator, blew it up. But I had walked away maybe about 2 or 3 minutes before the rocket hit the generator. They had already done abo, you know, so those abos must have came in handy because somebody was definitely looking out for me.
Yes, sir. That's facts.
That's you know, facts. So I ended up talking to a sister. She was an Ifa. I decided I was in Iraq. I had some questions. I decided to consult Ifa, and I didn't understand protocol or nothing like that. You know, I didn't understand that the Ilay would have frowned upon me getting readings from somewhere else. I didn't know that. I just felt that you can just get readings at the time. Anyway,
and that goes back to the conversation that we had off air that we're gonna do on another episode in the future because. And I don't mean to interrupt, but that's something that I'm very firm in regards to like this journey, man. It's so I feel like, and not everybody's house of Elay, but there are some that I know of and have like worked with people who left some of these places. You know what I'm saying? To kind of go off is that there's a I would say that there's a certain group or there's a certain I think thought process in regards to the people who are in charge in the Elays that they have to control and like be in charge of every aspect of their Elays, you know, everything that they do. There's no like sort of freedom. And from my school of thought, it's like, well, that's why I wasn't really type to be interested in Christianity or a lot of the, you know, the Western cultural civilization because of the control aspect. So it's like, as I've gotten further in my journey in the Isheshe tradition, I feel like, unfortunately, there's still some leftover kind of like crumbs of that same, you know what I mean, control or, you know what I mean, like dominance that carried over into where we are now as well. And that's something that hopefully we can kind of work through and get past. But right now, that's something that I feel like we definitely need to kind of get some sort of way of kind of easing the phase and that aspects out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
because if not, we're just following the same trends of the church.
Facts.
You know,
so, and because of that, well, you know, that led to them not wanting to do something that I felt that I needed done at the time. You know, because I've spoken with another Babala who was connected to an Araba who I come from the Bay Area. He told me I needed to do some abo. And they didn't want to do it for me because they felt that I stepped outside the line, like you mentioned, right? So this caused me to leave the Ile at the time. Not in they were beautiful people, but as far as they were concerned, I kind of broke protocol, and I decided I was going to go ahead and make moves on my own. I ended up running across Obafemi Fayemi, the one who wrote this book right here, The Fundamentals of Odu, right? I think you spoke about this book right here.
Look.
See, there we go. Same thing.
Look, I'm big on the library, bro. I'm big on the library. Right. I don't think there's ever been an interview or a call we had where we ain't talk about and bring up a bunch of books, man.
Facts, So yes, I met him at the time. I was with a lady friend at the, actually with a sweetheart who actually had her hand at V5. She had got her hand at V5 before I did at the time, and we went to a bookstore, and that's when I ran across Obafemi Fayemi, right? He was the one who was the founder of OIDSI, Organization of, for the studies for the advanced study of Ifa. And, oh my goodness, the Obafemi Institute for the Study of Ifa, pardon me. Man, we started talking, and he told me some stuff and told me that he was a student of Dr. Ben. He had been a part of the craft of Amun-Ra. So we clicked. I resonated with that real fast. He told me, look, don't get rid of Kemet, keep Kemet, because the other group that I was part of, they was like, well, you need to choose. You can't, study Kemet and this, because they felt that it would confuse me. But I didn't feel confused. I felt like I could make connections. So I felt like I had found my teacher in that moment, right? And now he was a student of Dr. Afolabi Apega, and it was a wonderful journey. He introduced me to another beautiful brother by the name of Shango Dare. That brother was dropping so many jewels, I didn't know where to put them, right? And, it gave me that feeling of freedom that I could study. And when I got initiated, when I went through my Ita and everything else, it talked about me being a scholar and so forth. So it all resonated with me. So I decided I was going to continue on that journey, and it's been, an even more expansive journey ever since. But that about sums it up to how I got to where I'm at today. I came into Lukumi. My first Orisha that I received was through Lukumi. That was Osain. And then I got Ifa in 2013. I got Osain in 2012, and I got Ifa in 2013.
You went back to back. Now, when you said you got Osiris, did you get initiated, or did you like receive like a consecrated pot or shrine to Osiris?
Both, but it was a different tradition. It's more like Lukumi. It's kind of like the Osiris that I have is similar to more like a prenda. You see what I mean? It's not the exact same thing as a Yoruba shrine. The Yoruba version. It looks like a calabash, and it's inside of a calabash, and you hang it up. Right, you got to hang it up. You got to keep it off. You got to keep it away from people, and so on.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, so, I've read about those, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
You hang it from. It has to hang from like a tree, right? It has, or like a certain part of the house or something like that, and it has to be elevated like above. Okay, yeah, I've read a little bit about that. That's what's up. That's good.
Indeed, and I'm gonna tell you that. Osiris was so powerful because the elder that hooked me up with Osiris, he said, look, you're going to get Ifa, but don't sleep on this one. Now, he was a Cuban elder. Man, I must have asked Osiris to help me find an herb that was going to have me increase my vitality. So I was down in what they call the International District, aka Chinatown. I'm standing on a corner. All of a sudden, I felt like something grabbed my ankles and literally directed me towards this particular part of the block, and then had me walk in front of this doorway. Then I turned in. It was a martial arts weapons supply store. I went in the back, and they had a bottle of Korean ginseng. That was the herb that I needed. So you can't make any of this stuff up. So I knew at that point in time that, look, man, these Orishas are no joke. They're powerful, they actually do things. It's not just something that you imagine. There's an actual intelligence. Yes, and whatever it is that you're tapping into, You know, if you have a sincere heart, you get focused and you do the work and you do what's right, they're going to hook you up. You know, you're going to have doors open for you. You're going to find yourself in the situations that are necessary for you to have whatever taken care of that needs to be taken care of. Right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Now, here's the thing. Before I got initiated into Ifa, I had a dream, right? Now, I'm going to tell you, I was kind of running away from getting initiated for a while. In a way, you know, when I first got the money, when I got from the military, I blew the money. So it's kind of like the universe said, oh, yeah, okay, watch this. Man, things went to straight crap, you know, some years later. I was with someone and everything else, you know, I separated, you know, I lost my place. I was like, what's going on? I spoke with a brother on the phone. He said, look, man, your ancestors have been calling you to get initiated. If you ignore this, consider that to be a slap in the face to your ancestors, you know? So then one morning, actually, I received the money, some back pay from when I was in the military, my service connected pay. And one morning, well, actually maybe 12 o'clock a.m., I found that I couldn't sleep. I kept on hearing voices whispering, saying, get your ass initiated. Get your ass initiated. Those were my ancestors. They was telling me that I had to get initiated. And I'm in the mirror looking like this because I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. These are my ancestors talking to me. So immediately I called up Baba. I said, hey, man, I'm coming in because he had done a reading. He had told me that, look, your path is in Ifa. You have a path in this tradition. You're a son of Orumala. So I decided I was going to go ahead and do it. Right. And look like after I did that, a lot of things cleared up. Now, this is another thing that was profound. I had a dream that I was literally running away from the shadow of Anubis or Anpu. He was chasing me through a kind of like, almost like some Freddy Krueger stuff, you know what I mean? But I could see his shadow. So I ran into these tubes and I came out the other side. I seen a brother that kind of resembled Will Smith standing under these pistons. One of the pistons came down and turned him into a blanket, flattened him into a stack of blankets, brown and green blankets. And then next to it was a pile of yellow and green blankets. And I woke up from that dream and it kind of told me, I guess, in so many ways that I was going to be covered by both traditions. After all, I learned a lot from Lukumi, and their Orumala is green and yellow. And I ended up going through Ifa, through Obafemi, and those colors are green and brown. So also Anubis represents initiation. Okay, he also is the jackal. He in ancient Kemetic tradition, he's also known as Ampu. A lot of times, if you're in the desert, you would follow the jackal, and the jackal would take you to the oasis. So they show him as being the guide to the so-called dead in the underworld. Anubis, aka Ampu, also is the one who makes sure that the deceased is banished so that they do not fall apart in the underworld as they're traveling to the next round.
That's deep.
Just that I share.
That's deep. Okay. Nah, I'm, you know, I'm so happy that you shared that because, bro, that's dope because that's like, damn, that's divine because that's like, shit, you went like 15, 20 times deeper just now than when we talked earlier. You know what I mean? Like we were talking earlier before we got ready for the show. And I'm glad you did because you gave me an alley-oop now to interweave and wave in like the Ashe and the divinities and how powerful it is because yesterday I was having a conversation with the Iya who did my locks, started my locks for me, and she shared something very similar to your story in regards to her upbringing. And like her mom used to do something similar, you know what I'm saying, back in the day, and they're from the islands, and she was like, she's always looking and be like, what is she doing? Da da da. And she would hear her calling these names, but she didn't know what the names were. But she would always, you know, see her mom's, you know, calling out these names or whatever, and then doing certain stuff, like you said, in the closet or whatever, like just, you know, like offerings or whatever, but didn't know what it was. And she would always ask, and she said she would never tell her. And she was like, you know, she kind of just like, whatever. So when she got older and she got into the tradition, she said that her mom's had went to like her storage unit or an old house or something to get some stuff. And her Elegua was gone. Her Elegba was gone. and she just heard, oh no, they got elect, but oh my God, like it was just crazy. So at that point, she had already made it through her journey where Ifa had called her. So now she's on her path. So now she knows who Elegba is. And so she was like, man, she was like, I was so blown. She was like, because that's what all these years I was wondering what she was doing when I would see her like go off and just do these little different things or whatever. And she's like, that's when it clicked. Like that's what it was. You know what I mean? And it's so dope because so many of our elders and ancestors or parents or grandparents, have always been practicing our hair, you know, our native spiritual sciences, right? But sometimes it was hidden, or sometimes it was kept, you know, kind of like the Lukumi and the Santeria, like it's hidden behind the mask of Santeria, but it's really Lukumi, which is Lukumi is also the offset or, you know, child of Ifa, you know what I mean, or Isheshe. So it's like that's dope that you shared that because, man, listen, so many dreams that I've had and so many like different, I would say, like either premonitions or like revelations or just like synchronicities that came into play in regards to my journey that it's almost surreal when you talk about how divine it is, and not just how divine it is, but how I would say supernatural it is. And when I say super, I mean like super as in super beings and natural as in Netjeru beings. You know what I'm saying? It's supernatural to us. You know what I'm saying? And but that's who we are. You know what I mean? So it's like, and shout out to the brother Big Chief Hayes. He made a quote on a short that I shared the other day, and he was like, "What we learn from nature is natural from us, but what we learn from man is like it's not." You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't flow with us. That's not who and what we are. You know what I mean? But pretty much it's like when we learn from our big mamas, our parents, our ancestors, the deities, that's natural for us. But then when we learn from this society, this construct, this government, or this system, or this, you know what I'm saying, this technology, whatever, that's foreign to us. That's to man, you know, of us. So it's dope to hear that because it brings me back to my story. Like I got told that I had to marry Baba Obatala before I married my wife. And mind you, at that point in my life, I had already proposed. We had already started setting up, doing everything. And it blew me. I was like, yo. So it kind of reminds me of what you said about when it was told to you was going to do it and then you didn't do it. But yet you went ahead and the money went away. And you kind of ran away from it, but they were like, nope, come back. And they gave them coins anyway. Like, now what you gonna do now? You know what I'm saying? so mine was like,
exactly.
I wasn't running away from it, but it was like, I'm like, Baba, you know, I just put some money, I just dropped some bands on like doing this. And he's like, no, you're gonna marry me first, and then you marry. I'm like, oh man. So it was crazy, bro. Cause I'm like, now I hope she take this the right way. Cause look, but it worked out. But I just tell that to say, man, like we don't control this journey. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we're never in control. No matter how many plans, no matter how many goals, no matter how many like ideas or paths or whatever it is that we set out for, it's never really totally ultimately up to us because the deities are going to step in and they're going to put us where we're supposed to be, no matter if we want to or not. If we're ready or not, we got to do it. And if we don't, it goes back to, like you said, it's like taking them spiritual butt whoopings. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's powerful and it's real. It's real. That's what's up. That's dope. Man, okay. So we just getting started now. We're just getting warmed up. You know, this is the layup line. We just did a couple layup drills and getting ready to come on, take off the sweats, man, and go for tip off. So how did you get to your Comedic journey? Like, I know you mentioned a little bit about Kemetic, but like, how did your Comedic journey come into play? Like, where did that like get picked up in regards to how you are to become where you are now?
When I was young and I seen the Ankh, that kind of put me on my journey. I was looking for it, you know. Wherever I seen the Ankh, I decided I was going to go. In fact, I even see the Ankh in my church, in the church that I was at. They had like I have a Bible, right, that literally has Coptic symbols in the back with the Ankh in it. So, and my parents actually had that Bible laying around. I think my mother actually had a copy of that Bible laying around in her house. She didn't even know what it was. But I remember those symbols. And then one day I went to Goodwill and I was looking through the book section and I seen that Bible there and I decided to purchase that Bible. So I got it somewhere. And I kept on following the Ankh, right? Because that was the symbol that left an impression on me. I decided I was going to study the Book of Coming Forth by Day. Now, I spoke about a brother earlier who had been a Mormon, you know. Later on, I discovered that he wasn't just a Mormon. He was a Moor man. You see what I mean? He understood something about ancient Kemet, and he told me to study the pyramid. He said, when you study the pyramid, that pyramid will begin to speak to you. So I started studying the pyramid. I got books on the pyramid. I meditate on the pyramid and things of that nature. I'd have all kinds of experiences with that. And I started looking into E.A. Wallace Budge's works. Okay. I started getting into that before I actually started getting into the what is considered the Black conscious community. So by the time I started studying Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakanan, and I'd also, by the way, I'd ran into Dr. Malachi York's works as well. I already had somewhat of an understanding of ancient Kemet, or Egypt at that time was Egypt. And eventually, when I went to New York one day, I saw an elder who had this powerful looking Ankh, right? In fact, I'll show you what it looks like.
I share. Yeah, the Ankh is extremely powerful too. Woo. Oh yeah, yeah.
So the priestly Ankh, right?
I was gonna say yeah.
And he had on a white garment. He had what they call Hebsa. His name was Pa'ur, and this was when I went and visited New York. And I've been studying Ron Ephraim Men's Mawata Ashby's material. And I asked him, hey, so are you into Kemet? And he explained to me, yes. He called it Kemet Kush at the time, and he told me that if you want to be liberated, then you need to get into your culture. And we had a conversation, and he talked about nutrition and how a lot of times things affect us, what we put in our bodies. And he gave me a flyer. It was called the Men Factor, and it showed the Netter men, the ithophalic Netter, and it was called the Men Factor, and it was basically telling young men how they need to preserve their vital energy without releasing it, right? So when I got back to Seattle, which is where I live, maybe a month had passed, and I decided to call him up. But I ended up talking to a brother named Grandmaster Cam. Now this happened back in the 90s, so this was like maybe, I want to say maybe 1995, yeah, around 95 at the most. So I spoke to him, and he said, okay, I'm going to introduce you to Sonora Samaj. Later on, I find out that his name was Baba Khepera Samaj Sepata. And I spoke with him, and he was telling me about how so many African Americans had come down with prostate cancer, men, how they were getting prostate cancer. And he was talking about the need to learn how to cultivate your seed, right? That was one of the first things he talked to me about, as well as why you need to eat a certain way, because a lot of times what we put in our system has a way of messing us up and shortening our lifespan and causing our memories to go dull. And I mean, I was really fascinated with what he had to say. Now, he didn't have like any books written or any elaborate systems to share with me, because I was talking to him over the phone. But I took everything he said to heart. He said, hey, if you want to make an offering to Ra, just take some citrus fruit, put in a bowl and put in the sun and eat the fruit, right? If you want to pay homage to the Netjeru in the morning, then you greet the four directions, you drink some water, So I'd greet the four directions, I greet the four Netjeru, Kwestanu, Thomasef, Hapi, and Amseti, Allah with Nevertet, Aset, Serket, and Ast, right? And So what I did is I would do that every day, and I could feel the energy. The energy was just literally feeling like it was raising up. And but I never was able to get back to New York. So I ended up eventually connecting with one of his other students, Hadi Khepra, and he took me to another path of initiation, and he taught about the triple Hasi where you chant Netjeraka Mara, Neteru Amara, Nuka Mara. I came through him, and he taught me quite a few things. He was really into the martial arts. Maybe about 4 years ago, he left and went into spirit. So he's in spirit now, So I still pour out libations to his Ka for his elevation and so on. But he was a really good teacher. But they helped me to understand that the Neteru is not just all around us, but within us. I started to study the Parivaru Ger, where it says Nuk Ba Inter, saying that my soul is divine, right? And he made sure that I understood that the Neter was not something that you had to worship as much as it's something that you have, that you acknowledge. You see what I mean? And that Neter, and we ourselves are Neter, and everything around us is Neter. I begin to see the Meru Neter everywhere around us. You see? The Meru Neter and Baba Obafemi made the connection between Medu and Odu, the Meru Neter and the Odu, which is something I want to get into at some point in time. But that led me on a journey, and I started connecting with the community. At that time, I was so much in the Kemet. I mean, I was reading all kind of stuff, but I was convinced about it. You see, in the 90s, I'd also started my own group called 360. So those who had come into 360, this is before I met Baba Heru, they would get an Ankh, right? And they get sworn in by two people. And we wore white and black. That was our colors at that time, representing balance. And it was a youth organization in which we would reach young people, would tell them about their culture, and we also talked a lot about Ma'at. I forgot to mention I met some other brothers earlier who told me about Ma'at, and I used to go to the Masuna study groups in Seattle. Masuna meaning Ma'at prevail. So I had a nice little education, I say, on Kemet outside of the universities. Then I say maybe back in 2000, maybe 2005 or 2006. No, actually, no. I'll say maybe about 2010. They had an Egyptian exhibit in Seattle. And the lady was taking people on the tour. And I was able to explain a lot of what was going on those walls. And she wanted me to come back, but the brother didn't tell me until after she had gone and the exhibit was pretty much on its way out of Seattle, because I guess they wanted to actually give me a job, you know? And I'm like, well, brother, how come you didn't tell me that I had this opportunity? You know, he's like, I wasn't able to get in touch with you. I'm like, brother, we live in the same apartment complex. You could have easily came and knocked on the door and told me that, but whatever. It just wasn't time, I guess. But I know that at that point, I had an impact. So if I wanted to talk to people about Kemet, at that time, I was pretty good at that particular subject matter. You know, I got groups of young people together. I'd have study groups. I had people study Ron Fragment's material as well. I'd also study Jacob Carruthers. I was able to meet people like Dr. Theophilo Benga. I met Queen Nzinga of ASCAC. And, you know, she's in spirit now, but she actually had asked some questions, and I gave her a little bit of advice of what to do to create some type of a study plan or a study curriculum for people who are interested in ASCAC at that time. And she actually was putting it together. She actually had put it together before she became an ancestor. So Ibaye, Queen Nzinga. Ibaye had a Khepra, and recently Ibaye Paur. He just passed away. Not the elder that I met with the Ankh when I was in New York. He just passed away recently, so he's in spirit now.
Yeah.
So as far as
I was gonna say, you know, it's like, and I could feel the energy rising because when you say ASCAC, like there's an elder who I met. I met him at I think it was like a community event I was emceeing or hosting, and his name was what was his name? It was John something. We're connected on Facebook. But anywho, I met him, and it was dope, man, because like it's almost like the way that your ancestors was whispering to you in your dreams and your thoughts. I'm not sure which like means of, you know, which medium of communication that they sent them, but when he was there, I remember he stood out because I don't have nothing here in this room, but he had a cane with him. but it wasn't a cane. I mean, it was a cane, but it wasn't a cane, right? And so I feel like I'm always very analytical and alert in my environment with everything. And even if it's not the physical eyes, the mind eye is like literally surveying the room just like a camera would, you know what I'm saying, in a store or whatever, because, you know, I feel like I'm pretty confident. I know for a fact, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the fact that he had that cane, but it really wasn't a cane. And I could tell it's like the way he was looking throughout the whole entire event. He was speaking to me, but he wasn't verbally speaking to me. So then when I you know, when the main part of the event kind of like broke up into like the, I guess like the reception aspect of it, you know, I went over and spoke to him. And you know, he introduced himself to me and we shook hands, we exchanged numbers. And I remember we took a picture too. And I remember he gave me a card, and that card was for ASCAP. And it was like, it was dope because, excuse me, he just had this amazing grace, like this amazing, like ashe, this amazing energy about him, this chi, whatever it was. And it was powerful, but it was so subtle. It was just like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing imposing about him in regards to, you know, the way his physical makeup was, but looking at him spiritually, if you were in tune or in touch, like you knew that you were in the presence of a very powerful elder. And I just never forget it, because now that you share your story, it triggered something in me. Because, and shout out to Pharaoh's Lounge. It was in Pharaoh's Lounge in Tampa, probably about 2018, 2019 was the event. And I remember after we took the picture, I was looking at the stick again. And it was dope because in hindsight, there's been 3 times in my life where I've seen something that some people will call a stick, some people will call a cane. But for me, now, and this is all coming through fruition right now live, is like I looked at it, I'm looking at it now, that was a scepter. That was like an ancestral scepter. You know what I'm saying? To where announcing the presence of the ancestors. And it's amazing how this is happening, because like this is a real time, I feel like, divine tap in or download, because today is Oshe Shango, you know, Kabiesi, you know, Ye Yansa, you know, Oya. And you know, she is the goddess of the ancestors, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then so I say all that to say the stick that he had, it was a cane, but now I look at it, it looked like a stick that would be symbolism to a gungun priest or priestess, you know what I'm saying, that you use to tap during, you know what I'm saying, ceremonies. And so I say all that to say, like, now it's like I can feel the tapping of like the stick from the elders to the ancestors to summoning and invoking the ancestors. But for this conversation, it's like a tap of the divination tray of the Opan Ifa, as well as a tap of the scepter, you know what I'm saying, or the what is it, the Wazet, what is it called, the scepter in Kemet that you carry?
There's the Was scepter, right?
Right.
And there's a story behind that scepter, right? Bruh. And the story is that after Set had betrayed Wasir and was put on trial, and eventually after he was defeated and proven wrong by Haru in court, Set's arms and legs were removed, and he was transformed into the Was scepter. So the priest could carry the Was scepter, but also to tap into the power. They're utilizing the power of Set, but they are transmuting it and utilizing it for good.
Oh man, listen. Well, they working tonight, man. They working tonight. They working tonight. That's deep, because it's nuts how all that came like just now. Because yeah, I believe he's still with us too. But damn, I can't remember his name. But anyway, I'll never forget it. So to go back real quick, so to try to tie it all down and keep it pushing. The only other 2 times that I remember seeing someone wield a stick or a scepter like that, where it captured me like that, was the very first event where I knew that I found my way home, because that event was led by an Iya who had that same type scepter or ancestral stick. And when she opened up on the stage, she was opening up an event for Baba James Small, my first time meeting him and meeting this Iya and what eventually grew to be my spiritual family. I'll never forget it. Like, she started tapping the stick, and then she dropped them a couple of drops of water for their libations, And I promise on everything, it felt like the veil was dropped and the presence was, you know what I'm saying? You didn't see them, but you knew, like the ancestors, they were there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like they're there. Like, it was like, I'm like, yo, I'm home. I'll never forget that. I'm like, I'm home. And it was just dope, bro, because I'm getting chills a little bit just thinking about it. And now in hindsight, which is even more deeper, bro, is like, I didn't know at the time, but Professor Small is a priest of Oya. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is like how deep this goes, you know, with this conversation and this alignment, bro. Like, it's deep. Okay, so now, wow. So with that, excuse me, what is the significance of the number 9 when we're speaking about the Kemetic culture? Because I know most of the people on this channel are very familiar with it in the Ifa Sheshe culture, but what is the symbolism, what is the significance in the power of the number 9 in the Kemetic culture?
According to ancient wisdom keeper, there's 360 Neteru, right? Just like there's 400 plus 1 Orisha. But there are 360 Neteru, 3 plus 6 plus 0 is 9. But also, you're dealing with, they had a 10-day period, and I found out from another elder, they also had a 9-day period, you know. So he had developed a calendar recently where your birthday is always on the same day of the same month at the time you were born, and it doesn't bounce up and down the calendar like yours would do on the 7-day calendar, number one. So there's a 9-day period connected to what is called the Pau Neteru, and they were the 9 Neter, who would be the first Neteru that came into being. So if you know about the story of Ra in the book of Knowing the Creations of Ra, Ra came into being. He starts off as 1 Neter who became 3. It says that when he came from out of the Nun, he established himself in Ma'at, right? So he gives birth to 2 other Neteru, right? He sneezes out shu, shu, right? And he spits out tefnu. Tef means to spit. So he spit out tefnu. So therefore, you see the principle of heat and water coming into being. And then from Shu and Tefnut was born Gabanut. Gabanut represents the earth plane, the earthly plane, Nut representing the heavenly plane. Set tore himself out of Nut's side, and she also gave birth, right, to Haru, Het Haru. That is, no, my bad. Nebutet, Haru, or Hetaru, and Aset. And this was a long time ago, so it's like my brain is like, Anyway, or another version, he gave birth to Asar, Aset, Set, and Nebutet. And eventually, Asar gave birth to Ampu after he got drunk and ended up giving birth to Ampu through Nebutet. Either way, how you say it, this starts off at 9 Neteru.
Okay.
The 9 Neteru, the 9, the Pau. So then you see where around there from in, he takes the Pau Neteru and adds it to the tree of life, right? You got Geb, and then at the top you got Osir, right? You got Tahuti, then you got Seker, then you got Hetakahudi, then you got Ma'at, then you got Haru, right? Then you got Hetaru, then you got Sebek, and then you got Aset, and then going down into Geb. So as far as those who have not come into Earth, the earthly plane, you got these other 9 Neteru, and then they come down Earth and they form into Geb, which is you, which is your physical body. All the Neteru represent different aspects and faculties of yourself. Now, Paut means primordial matter. The primordial matter shaped itself into 9 different Neteru. In some cases, like in the Memphite theology, it's 8. The 8 Neteru in the Memphite theology is Nununet, Huhet, Kukuket, and Amen and Amenet. I've had people arrange it so it spells out Ankh, but it's the Amen, Amenet, Nununet, Huhet, and Ku and Kuket, right? And these 8 aspects coalesce, some would say, into PTAH, right? So therefore, once again, you got the working of 8, and then you have the 9. PTAH, if you look at PTAH, PTAH could be heaven and earth. PTAH also is the universal architect, the blacksmith that molds creation. You'll see this connection where there's the 8 immortals. The 8 immortals is connected to Chinese to I Ching. You got the 4 male, you got the 4 female, right? Then you got, now this is where you see the similarities to Ifa. where they have the 9, Ifa expanded into 16. I mean the 8, right? You have the 8.
Wait,
right?
wait. Listen.
Ifa
Oh
expanded
my
into
God.
16.
No. Listen. I want to keep going, but boy, when I tell you this is a classic, because we about to go. So before you go there, because this is really gonna tickle anybody who in E5 exchange, is gonna tickle their fancy all the way, buddy. But before you go there, I want to like do a couple quick little like lane switches to weave in some of the E5 exchange into where you're going, because I know where you're going. So you said there was it Osar who got drunk with the creation aspect, and then what happened? Was that which? Okay, so now isn't there a deity who is attributed to being a creator deity in the Ifa Isheshe pantheon that is also a creator deity that was? There's a story about him getting a little, you know what I'm saying, juiced up on the job. And what would that deity's name be? What was his name be?
Obatala.
Okay, Obatala. And then Obatala, and then you said Pata. Is there so does that, where does that go? Is there anything that is any like significant?
You mean Obatala?
Well, Pata or Obatala. Is there any like any type of connection between those two? Because there's clearly one between Asar and Obatala, but what about Pata and Obatala?
Well, when I first read the God Genes Decoded, I see what a brother put, Patala. You know what I mean? But Patala, Patala, Obatala has something to do with the fabric of creation, just like Ptah does, right? How? Well, they call Obatala the chief of the white cloth. What does a cloth consist of? It's a piece of fabric, the fabric of creation. It consists of rows and columns of fibers. So does a matrix. Cosmic intelligence has guided me to connect matrix, mathematics, mat in which you sit on, and ma'at, all being related when it comes to principle. The divine principle of ma'at has to do with divine harmony and connecting with the fabric of creation. When you look at Obatala and you look at Osir, you see something very interesting, and that is a similarity in parallel. Osir and Obatala both have something to do with the shaping of consciousness. The Ori, all Oris belong to Obatala in that sense. But when you look at the hieroglyphics that make up the name Osir, you have a seat and you have the eye. The eye is actually called Ari. It is the consciousness that helps make the seat, or shape the seat, or pervade the seat. But what is the seat? The seat is Aset. So it also indicates the masculine and feminine principle coming into being and creating which is called solidarity. There has to be a balance. And in order for a pharaoh or a king to be called a pharaoh or a king or a sultanate or a nesut, it has to be ordained by him being married to a queen mother, because the throne is actually the woman. The woman embodies the throne. Just like in the Yoruba tradition, in order for a king to be crowned, 2 women has to crown him. Look at Osir and you notice that there are 2 women standing behind him. Aset Nebetet stands behind Osir. And in so many ways, they also got his back. They're the hidden powers behind the throne. And just like the crown that is given to the king in the Yoruba tradition, it is the women that own that crown. So you see, it's a harmony of the sacred masculine and feminine energy. Now, going back to Osir, Osir represents the divine individual that's been awakened, the divine ancestor, which is within each and every one of us, and the life seed, the life germ that's found throughout creation, right? Osir, he's known as Osir Neferkam, Osir of the beautiful black. That could represent the depth of consciousness, just like it can also represent the alchemical aspect of the soil that is washed up on the, when the Nile goes through its various stages. Osir, according to Round Up for Men, represents that part of ourselves that has yet to be awakened because it was cut up and broken into pieces. There's a story about how Atunde rode a boulder down a hill and it smashed into Orisha and Neteru, which is Obatala, and broke him into pieces. That's also another story of the shattered calabash. And the calabash in the Ifa, it talks about how the calabash is shattered and broken into pieces. And it talks about this in the Odu of Ofun Meji, Eba. The calabash is brought back together into oneness. So each and every one of us are a Sar in that degree. Each and every one of us represent Obatala. We come down to earth. We forget who we are. We get drunk, we make mistakes, and so on. And eventually we have to reawaken, and then we come back together. That's how creation works. This is alchemy. When anything happens, when something is born and it goes through a stage, in alchemy, there's an aspect where the pure has to be separated from the impure, and it reaches a certain level where it's separated and the parts are clean and brought back together. And when it's brought back together, it becomes much more powerful. It becomes something of a higher vibration. This is alchemy. Now, I wanted to talk, if you don't mind, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with Kemet and what's going on with the Yoruba tradition, right?
I want to go there. And look, we can go wherever you want to go. But I want to, because listen, I'm in class. And one thing about me, I take class serious. And I mean serious. So, and shout out to the young king, Sirius, and he knows who he is. But and that's how serious this is, and I'm gonna keep saying this because it is serious. SIRIUS, serious. So you mentioned earlier, because there's so many jewels being dropped, like this is a book like in real time being written. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to speak about Tahuti, and then you said also that there was a connection between Tahuti and Odu. Yes. So before we go into that, because I know that this audience they tapped in and we're all in sync. Tahuti and Odu, one is from the Comedic culture, one's from the Isheshe culture, but you have to have the presence of Odu in order to be what most would call the highest, I would say, intermediary or messenger between the guys, the ancestors, and humanity is a Babalawo. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Would the Babalawo be able to communicate with that, I would say, network of communication without the presence of Odu?
You have to have Odu in one form or the other. And the way I look at it is that you cannot get away from Odu, because Odu is the stories of creation within our holographic reality. You see? So it goes back to kind of what I mentioned about Obatala. And being that he's connected with the 16 patterns of existence. How? Because he pervades all the Odu from Ugbe to Ofun. You see? Now, I'd say as far as Tahuti, and why do I mention Tahuti? I mention Tahuti is because if you look at Tahuti, Tahuti is an ibis-headed being. Sometimes he's depicted as a baboon. However, he has this beak, and the beak represents a bird that pecks in the sand. His priests were scribes. Yes, and also connecting with the palm nuts. All of that's connected. And you're going to see that. Thank you, CMP. That's going to happen when you get back into, let me go back a little bit to Obatala. I'm going to connect it to Tahuti and why I say that. Tahuti was the advisor of Osiris, right? Arumala is also the advisor of Obatala. Obatala is the father of the Orisha and the owner of all the heads. So every human being has a head. The Yoruba tradition, the head is called Ori. And it also talks about the Ori, right? According to Odu, never leaves us. Now, in many ways, Obatala, that would be the Osar of the Yoruba people. But why is it that he would get advice from Tahuti? The reason why is Tahuti was known as the divine scribe. He is in charge of writing, and is often said that he is the one who brought the Medu Neter, the hieroglyphic writing system, into the world. His priests were often administrators and judges. And there's a form of divination called automatic writing, where you go into trance and you just write, and the messages come from your higher self, your Tahuti faculty that dwells within us. And you'll be surprised on how accurate it can be if you allow yourself to move out the way, and that your universal aspect of you, right, should I say, line up with Ipanri, work through you. Tahuti advised Osir, Orunmila advised Obatala. It's interesting that Tahuti is never depicted with a regular head of a human. He's always shown with the head of an ibis, and he is in the form of a baboon. And like Orunmila, Tahuti is seen as a prophet, and Tahuti was associated with the lunar aspect, like Ra, who played a significant role in the function of the calendar. But here's where it gets interesting. Tahuti, in Western occult knowledge, is known as Hermes Trismegistus. And in even a degree in Masonry, it talks about him being the father of that craft as well. But who is Hermes Trismegistus? Hermes actually means veiled and concealed, and Trismegistus means 3 times great. However, he has been identified with Thoth, who is none other than Tahuti. But it gets even more interesting. If you get into Western occult, you'll discover that there's a science called geomancy. And geomancy contains 16 patterns of divination. And what happened is that the story goes is that there was a prophet called Idris, according to Islamic Sufism. Idris has been identified with Hermes. And it said that Idris was sitting under a palm tree marking these patterns in the sand. And the angel Gabriel came about and told him exactly what those were. And by the way, those were 16 patterns. And he was told, and it said in Islam, that the Prophet Muhammad is known to have said that anyone who learns this system will gain the knowledge of the prophets. Tahuti is the netter of the prophets. And Orunmila is also known as the prophet of Ifa. So yes, Hermes, Thoth, and Tahuti. Indeed, brother Nkosi. He's also been identified with Enoch. Enoch means to initiate, the initiator. And it said that Enoch was transformed into the angel Metatron. And then there's a such thing as Metatron's cube that deals with sacred geometry. When you get into work with Odu, you see where Odu also connects with sacred geometry. And that everything around us is in fact Odu. And everything around us is connected. And this goes back to the faculty of Sikr called divine design. Enoch also dealt, they said that Enoch lived for 365 years, which is actually an astrological in nature. And then he went up into the heavens because the Lord took him. Orunmila also is known to have sat under a palm tree. And Orunmila is depicted oftentimes sitting under a tree with the 16 Odu surrounding him. So you see, the thing about it is that there's a universal awareness of this knowledge. And my question has always been, well, why does it sound so much alike if one has absolutely nothing to do with the other? So when we look at the systems of Ifa, you'll discover something else that's interesting, right? It's not just in Yoruba land where they use these 16 patterns, but you see that these 16 patterns pervade throughout Africa, down into Cameroon. You see where they're down in Benin, Togo, and so forth. And of course, you could say they have a common origin and that they're all related. In the Fan tradition, and Orunmila has his first 2 disciples, Asheda and Akoda. The Fan tradition talks about Cheta and Koda coming down and teaching humans about this system, saying that everybody has a divine word or marking. The divine word is your marking, which is your Odu. So it's talked about in Vodou tradition as well, with the 16 patterns. So same 16 patterns. Now, not too long ago, right, I'd read a book by Illuminate Lucas. And, there's been a lot of people who has, spoken and have refuted his work and saying that it was not really as thorough. However, he was a Yoruba man, was both a clergyman and an educator. He observed similarities in the Yoruba language and that of ancient Kemet. The Yoruba language has a lot of sounds and syllables that seem to sound very similar to Kemetic words like Ra, Ka, and Ba. Like, for instance, Elegbara, the owner of power, Obara, or Torah. And Ra is also a Yoruba word meaning light, power, and vigor. And in the Kemetic tradition, Ra is the spirit of life, strength, and health and body. They call him Ankuchasanev. So some have also speculated there's the connections between the Yoruba language and the Kemetic language. Like, for instance, Ifa and Nefer. Well, Nefer is another word for harmony. Now, Ifa literally means to scratch, but nevertheless, Ifa is consulted to establish harmony in one's life. So we can say Illuminate Lucas, he made an attempt to put together what may have been something, but it needs to be explored more in depth. Now, there's also that speculation about whether or not the Yorubas originated in Mecca, Kemet, Kush, or simply indigenous to West Africa. And there's evidence that Nigeria has been peopled for thousands and thousands of years. So I could and would never say, or should I say, I would never say that they originated from one particular place in a monolith, but I do believe that there were at least influences and intermarriages between West African and East Africans. And I also like to point out to many that the borders and boundaries were created by European colonizers, right? And that the previous Africans had to also deal with invasions from Asia and the Mediterranean. And prior to that, the ancestors also had to consider, moving due to forced migrations due to droughts and ecological changes. Now, there's another author that I like to talk about. His name is Mustafa Gadala, author of a book called Exiled Egyptians in the Heart of Africa. He is a native-born Egyptian. He has wrote other books like Historical Deception. Now, he saw connections with ancient Kemet and various African forms of ancestral veneration, including liberation. Now, when you look on the walls of Kemet, you see pictographs of Cometians pouring water as libations to the ancestors. And when you look at indigenous African traditions, you will see this is still a common practice. You see this among the Yoruba, the Igbo, the people of Ghana, and you'll see it through the various Vodou tradition. And when you look at Vodou, it contains the word Odu. Odu is dark matter consciousness. Odu are the containers of the stories that make up our holographic reality. And when we look at dark matter, we see it as another way of saying dark mother. Now, in the Ewe Fan tradition, she is called Nana Buluku. Nana Buluku gave birth to Mawu, the lunar aspect, or the lunar mother, and Lisa, the solar father. But in Kemet, we have Nut as the heavenly dark mother. And we see how she gives birth to the sun and the moon, and later on, she swallows the sun and moon, and she gives birth to them again. It's an ongoing process, cyclical nature. The Fan see these two deities as the sun and the moon. They simply call it Mawulisa. The word Vodou simply means spirit. And from the African perspective, spirit pervades all of existence and cannot be destroyed. Hence, each of us are embodiments of spirit, but the highest level of spirit cannot be conditioned. So in the Comedic chapters of knowing the creations of Ra, it says, I created myself in a multitude of forms, and this includes plants, animals, and humans. The Purdim Haruim Ger, the book of coming forth by day from night, the scribe Anui says, Nukba Neter, my soul is divine. So the story of Obatala and Asar being broken to pieces or dismembered is about you being shattered when you lose your memory and must find all your parts. So how does that happen? As we go through life, it talks about when you come through the birth canal. When you come back to the birth or come to the birth canal, the first shock and the first trauma is you coming into this world, you begin to forget the mission that was established before you came into physical form. So the reason why you have the Afar readings, or you go to the priest, you go to the Babalawo, or you go to the Baba Orisha, Orisha to get a reading, is because you want to remember. And to remember is to bring back those scattered pieces back into oneness. The human condition has everything to do with forgetfulness. Okay. Now, Iwalis Budge argued that Egypt was African. And why do I have to keep on talking about this? Because lately there has been an attempt to separate Kemet or Egypt from Africa, right? And there's been also those of us who feel that we don't want to have anything to do with that because, well, a lot of us think, you know, it's Arabs or foreigners had established that civilization, or for some strange reason, even though it's been argued and shown and proved it's on the African continent, some people still seem to believe it's in the Middle East. Whatever. E. Wallace Budge argued that Egypt is in Africa, and he stated that the origin of Egypt, and this is a white man, who's, you know, he said it stretched all the way into Uganda. Uganda is under the Sudan, so today the Semleki River separates Uganda from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So Africans were being kidnapped out of that area as well. Mustafa Gadala said in his book that many of the Egyptians had fled into Congo and caused the Congo population to increase drastically. So it seems that when it comes to the so-called slave trade or slave trade, they want us to narrow it down mainly to a certain small segment of West Africa. And it seems when it comes to the slave trade, they want us to be as far as away from having any connection to the Nile as possible. Not to say that West Africa did not always also have its advanced civilization as well. But what about the high numbers of Africans that were taken from other places too, like the Congo? What about Senegambia, which stretched from Senegal border to Mauritania and Mali? And these are the stone circles. They're like smaller stone versions of smaller stone hinges in Senegal. What are those? Is it possibility or an indirect memory going back to the stone circles of Adam's calendar that was created at least 75,000 years ago? Robert Bauval wrote a book called Black Genesis, and he also followed up with a book he collaborated with Thomas Brophy called Imhotep, the African architect of the cosmos. So the calendar circle at Naphtali lines up with Arcturus, Sirius, and Orion's belt. Naphtali is said to be about at least 7,500 years old. So we see that the ancestors were very connected with the movement of the stars and the heavenly bodies, and they wanted to build a heavenly kingdom on earth. Hence, Kemet, they have what is called a university, a city aligned with the universe. That's the university. In the original initiations, you learn about the elements, hence elementary school, the 12-year program, and everything else in college. All of that goes back to the ancient world. What book is that, brother?
That's the origin map by Thomas Brophy. The one you breaking down without no visuals. I just wanted to get him a visual because you're going in. This some guy shit. Like and listen, when you mentioned the universe and you spoke about Murph, like Brophy, like we here. Keep going. I don't want to interrupt. I just wanted to show that. Like keep doing it. Keep going.
Right. So yeah, there's also evidence, you know, Dogon had a connection with Kemet. The West have been at all with the mathematical observations when it comes to the Dogon and the movement of Sirius B. You know, so there's something else too that I want to talk about. I did a DNA test some time ago, thanks to a beautiful sister that's in North Carolina that made sure that it happened around the time of my birthday. And I discovered that I had, when I loaded up the DNA portal, I discovered I had ancestors in Mercuria. Well, it turns out Mercuria is between Egypt and the Sudan. And I discovered that two other sisters I talked to who had a DNA test also had ancestry going back to Mercuria, which we had talked about earlier, which is connected to, which was Nubia, aka Tasseti, the land of the bow. So one of my experiences that I had was with somebody who was actually doing a reading. She was looking into me because she went into trance. She told me that I had ancestors who were of Ochosi that lived in Central Africa, right? Remember, you go down Uganda, jump across the river, and pretty much you're in the Congo. A lot of the stuff that the brother mentioned in that book, you know, had basically said Cometians, when their civilization was under attack and they had to deal with all these droughts, they fled into the interior of Africa. So the question is why is that so hard for people to believe, you know? And they also said that their civilization was about at least 50,000 years old. Egyptology don't want to take that and accept that. They'll just say the regular consensus that is 4,500. So therefore, they can tell you about the space aliens and Anunnaki that was, created by Zecharia Sitchin. Not to say that there's no validity to the Anunnaki and so forth, but the thing about it, people are taking the ball and running, and they're just making up stuff as they go. So I just wanted to bring things back into perspective, I study a lot of Hermetic literature, Hermes Trismegistus. A lot of that is a combination of Kemetic and Greek philosophy, mainly Platonic in nature. But I digress.
Baba, real quick, because shout out to Nkosi, and I don't mean to interrupt, but because this is, man, I'm telling you, it's amazing how divine it is. But that's what I was talking about, Nkosi. Where we're at right now is like, I know you're familiar with the book, The Kybalion, right? The seven Hermetic Principles, The Kybalion.
Indeed.
Okay, I'm gonna step back. I'm gonna go back to eating my popcorn and watch it from the back. Go get them.
Well, I mean, shoot, that. In fact, those seven principles, that's a mantra for me. I just say mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender, right? So, that's one of the first things that I learned that I put to heart. I had a teacher said, you better remember those seven principles. And I did too. I put them down like, boom. Mentalism, the all is mind, but the universe is mental. And this also indicates that each and every one of us is also co-creators. I remember one of my first Sufi teachers talking about if all humans was to disappear, all this stuff would fall into disarray. It'd just poof away. Because collectively, we also have something to do with holding us together with our thoughts. Basically, what we're observing, we're actually keeping that together by merely observing it. Okay? So one of the things that's beautiful too is the similarities of the Yoruba teachings in the afterlife. Now, Yorubas and the Cometians were both agricultural societies. The Yoruba have the Orisha and Kemetic, they have the Neteru. They both deal with forces of nature, how to connect with the forces of nature, defeat the forces of nature, be one with the forces of nature, and also see yourself as the force of nature. So even in Ejiobe, it talks about eventually human beings becoming Orisha. I believe it's in Eji. Actually, it's in the Odu. It talks about human beings eventually becoming Orisha. Okay, each and every one of us. So when you pass away, right, or when you pass away into spirit, let's say you're a child of Obatala, then you become one with the aspect of Obatala. If you're a child of Shango, you can become with the aspect of Shango and so forth, and you become like an ancestral line that's connected to those Orishas. You see what I mean? So we're here to experience life as individualized forms of consciousness. The Yoruba believe that the soul lives on after death as well. And they also believe, just like in ancient Kemet, it will be judged in the afterlife, and it was done by the deeds that it did when it was on the physical form on earth. And also that you would have a life review by Eshu when you go back to the heavenly realm of all the things that you did, then you will be accounted for. So the life review, the judgment scene, and everything else is all there. Now, Nubia, what is now, Nubia, what is now Sudan, is what is labeled sub-Saharan Africa. So when you hear these folks trying to tell you need to leave Kemet alone because it has nothing to do with sub-Saharan Africa, which is a racist term made up by a European by the name of Hegel, okay? It's kind of silly because, first of all, according to the Comedic literature, the so-called Nubians or the Tassetians came from the seed of Ra, or the masturbation of Ra, right? In other words, so-called Tassetians, Nubians, blacks, if you will, are the seed of Ra. The Nubians or the Kushites, the Cushitic languages are still spoken today. It's still spoken among the Oromo people of Ethiopia. And the Somalis still refer to themselves as the Kushti. So the Kush civilization and the Kush people who are definitely connected to the Nile Valley civilizations are still around. So when they tell you and act like they don't know what you're talking about, that's just a bunch of racist propaganda to get you away from understanding that you have a connection and that your ancestors built empires. Okay? The Yoruba is a beautiful tradition. Oh my goodness, is it forever? A rich tradition. I believe that there's connections. I don't believe that anybody stays in one place for 50,000 years without traveling and connecting with other people. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And if the Arabs can establish a trade route, and if the Muslims can establish a trade route and go all the way into West Africa, how come the Cometians couldn't have done the same thing? You see, now people literally say that that divination system with the 16 patterns, come from the Arabs. But I beg to differ. It says they come from Idris. Well, Idris was supposed to have been a Cometian. Idris was supposed to have been Egyptian, according to their own teachings. So that divination system has a point in Kemet. And I spoke with another Babalawo who didn't just tell me that the system of divination is similar between the Yoruba and Egypt. He said those are the same systems. Asaju Kiamorikaba, he speaks about the depictions that are found in South Africa. Here's another thing, and I agree. I believe that the oldest thing that led to the creation of Kemet comes from the southernmost part of Africa. Adam's calendar is at least 75,000 years old, at least according to what they have said, what they discovered there. And it's found all the way in so-called South Africa. And you'll also see where there's a group among the Zulus called the Bonobukulu Abasi Kemu. There's supposed to be a priesthood of Cometians that still live among the Zulus to this day. And they claim that they have the connections to the ancient priesthood of Aset. Okay. So I wanted to go a little bit back into the cultivation system because ancient African tradition, Afrika, the flesh and spirit of Ra, right? Af meaning gold, Nub meaning gold, the Nubians, the golden ones, and so forth, which our ancestors are and still are here with us today. They understood that in order to become immortal, you had to practice some form of integrity, which is the development of character. So going back, Obatala is the father of the Orisha, the owner of all the heads. Every human being is basically a child of Obatala. Obatala, in many ways, is the Asar of the Yoruba. They're both seen as divine righteous kings. They both got drunk. Obatala created deformed humans. Asar accidentally sleeping with Nebutet, who was the wife of Set, causing the birth of Ampu, the jackal. When you go into the Dogon tradition, the jackal represents that which brought disorder into the world, so on. There's the debate around the meaning of Obatala, but once again, the popular translation for Obatala is the king of the white cloth. He's associated with purity, wisdom, and light. So the cloth being fabric, he is the king of the fabric of existence itself. A white cloth consists of rows and columns. The table of Ifa, the 16 Odu, consists of rows and columns. A mathematical matrix consists of rows and columns of numbers. We live within a matrix. A divine mathematical proportions, the 16 Odu that make up the 240 other combinations, are the expressions of the operations of the divine matrix. And we can say that the Odu are God's words and actions manifesting as the patterns of life. Obatala, in this sense, connects all the Odu from Ejiobe to Ofun. The consciousness of Obatala and Ori pervades the matrix, aka creation. Consciousness expresses itself through matter. The diviner sits on what is called a math so they could see the stories told within the math and bring the individual back into alignment, balance, and harmony with the Cometians called Ma'at. Cosmic intelligence. Once again, we look at this before we go too far. Let's look a little bit at Osiris. Osiris is said to have brought civilization to the land. His name is said to mean seat maker. Let's review that a little bit. When you break down Asar, you get Ari and Ast, the seat maker. The seat is called Ast or Aset, Isis. The seat represents divine rule and stability, which is represented by the divine lady Aset, who is the mother, or Matter, who is the womb of spirit. The king represents the one who is fully grounded and integrated, and therefore Makaru, true of voice. This is consciousness expressing itself through matter, having full knowledge of her, his, and itself. One whose thoughts, words, and actions are in harmony. The glyph is the eye over the throne, the true meaning of the eye over the pyramid, one who can be of service to the world while observing and working through matter. Therefore, we are here to be divine expressions of the gods. We're here to allow ourselves to let the spirit pervade us. This is the mystery in which the church tried to preserve by allowing the Holy Spirit to work through you. If you're familiar with Dragon Ball, for those who are anime fans, it talks about Goku reaching Ultra Instinct, where he no longer has to think. He automatically blocks, moves, strikes, punches, and gets out of the way, right? Well, when you're one with spirit, that's actually supposed to be how it works, because you're aligned and your thoughts no longer get in your way because you are aligned with divine destiny. The Comedians speak of Ra and Ptah having the ability to create with their words alone. The Yoruba has the word Ashe, which means authority or command. The Yoruba also talk about the power of Ofa Ashe, which can also translate into voice command, which is why there are plenty of Odu, of verses warning us about self-hexing. For those familiar with the Yoruba concept of Odu, Ika Meji warns us about self-hexing. And what's interesting is that Ika sounds a lot like Heka, which is divine spiritual power in the Kemetic tradition. Heka is a Kemetic word for spiritual power and magic. Oro means word in Yoruba. Oro would have to be compared to the concept of the logos. Ifa teaches us that we all have certain amounts of Ofu Ashe. Also, understand that the universe, the one song, the one verse, the one turn, is voice activated, and so is your DNA. This is why we sing songs called Orin, and we utter praise poetry called Oriki. Oriki means elevation of consciousness. So when we give thanks and praise, we are elevating our consciousness. How often do we send life to each other with a friendly utterance? The Kemetic literature says that the Neter hates too much talking. Sometimes it's good for us to take time out of using our words. We're in a society that demands us to use lots of words, where we always keep ourselves and our atmosphere saturated with all kinds of vibrations, with all kinds of things we're simultaneously depleting ourselves with. Our energy, just random conversations on simple things, not putting the mind at ease, but irritating the mind. It keeps us mentally fatigued as well, especially when we're always worried and our minds are full of mental chatter. One of the ways to come to mind when it comes to chatter is to breathe. So we look at the Kemetic tradition, right? It says, it talks about Haru and Set standing on the side of the Sema and planted in the ground. It's called Semai Tawi. What is that? That is the lungs and trachea. It was the lungs and trachea that brings forth the unification of the two lands, where it shows that Haru and Set are working together. P, the story of Shango, when Shango was left by his wives after he had gotten into it with his generals and he had to flee. The story is that Shango went and hanged himself on a tree, and he fell into a hole in the ground where his colors were red, but he merged with the colors of Obatala and he became red and white. Just like once Haru was able to defeat Set and show that Set was false and his father was correct, and he took on the attributes of his father, he began to wear the red and white crown that unified upper and lower Kemet. You are here to unify the higher self, the lower self. You are here to learn to balance the two brain hemispheres. You're here to carry your cross and master the four coordinates within yourself.
We could never not do another podcast again and walk off, and that's a grand slam home run. That's a win. Like, man, listen. I could pick the mic up, drop it, and just walk off. Because it ain't really a whole lot. It ain't really a whole lot more left to say. I'm just gonna say this. I'm just gonna come out and say this. I don't know who I was talking to. I was talking to somebody yesterday. I was like, I don't never brag on myself. At least I don't try to. I just, I try to just make moves and work, man, and let the work speak, but what I am proud of is and excuse my friends, but I got to say it with my passion in my heart. What I am proud of is the people who I rock with or who rock with me, who mold me, who coach me, who teach me, who uplift me, who empower me, all those things. And I won't brag about myself, but when it comes to the people who, like, I know that they about that light, like that's it. I'm gonna talk that shit. And boy, when I tell you, I'm telling you, I can walk off right now. I'll never do another podcast. And that's no disrespect to nobody, but oh my God, like, bruh, man, listen, that was crazy. That was crazy work. That was crazy work, bro. Like, I'm like, oh, we are witnessing the manifestation, the crystallization, and the actualization on every level of elevation. My God, the presence of God is here right now. And if you don't know, I don't know what to tell you, but boy, if they don't see you, they're gonna smell you, because what this is it right here. Yeah, that's it. Hey, look at the crowd. Look, tribe, listen. I don't think we've ever done this before. I think we might just need to take a commercial break on a live. We just need to chill. Look, I think we can break out into a Q&A session. Like, for real, I think, because this is of epic proportions. This is of epic proportions. Look, this is what we do here. Wu Nam did this one night, bro. I promise you. It was a night we was doing a live, and she messed around and started giving like divinations live, and she was freestyling with it with like multiple people in the audience on a live stream, and giving like and breaking everybody down. Like, oh, okay, yeah, he said this, da 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 da, and then she like just like double dutching, like shuffling the deck with it, like it's nothing. I'm like, yo, this shit is crazy. This is crazy. And then, and then when she told me about you, I'm like, okay, but this is crazy. This is crazy work. This is crazy work. Somebody said epic. Yes, indeed. Listen, it ain't even no other word to say. That's epic. Like, this is like, yo. This is crazy work. Oh my God. This is crazy work right here. For real. This is crazy. Oh man. This is crazy. This is crazy, bro. Okay, so listen. There's so much there. Like, I'm like that's nuts. It's shout out to Navi Orisha Stone too, because we did one last Friday and it was dope. And he was saying, I be saying a lot. Man, shit. Yeah, I be saying a lot, but that you said a whole lot. You filled up a couple of airplane parking lots, a couple of UFO, a couple of craft parking lots. Look, top of tier Hawaii, like the whole doggone, you know what I'm saying, the whole court, like, you know what I'm saying, like we just laying out the craft on the top of the big boy stones, like that's what that was, like that. Yeah, y'all better pay attention. Y'all better pay attention, because I'm telling you now, like if that's not the presence of God, I don't know what is, man. I ain't never heard nothing that raw like that. Like that was dope. I give credit where credit's due. That was dope. That is Khepra rah rah. Like that's rah rah. That's rah rah, like Khepra rah rah. Like that's the big rah rah. That was the big rah rah, bro. Like that was dope. That was dope. Like for real. I think we're gonna take a little halftime break, y'all. Like that was dope. I'm for real too. I think we should really please. We're gonna take a couple minutes. Y'all just give me some comments to put on the screen just to show if y'all feel how real that was to me, how real I feel it was. Like, just put whatever in the comments. I'm gonna put them on the screen, because I think that deserves that's like a break. That's like a halftime break for real. Because bro, you hit so much there. And I'm just in my mind, I'm traveling. Like that felt like an astral projection, like for real. Because in my mind, I remember when I astral projected before, and it's like when you're moving so fast that everything is like a blur, but it's clear, it's crystal clear too. Like I mean, like looking through a quartz crystal clear, and it's like, but it's a blur, and so you see all these lights and they're moving, and like all that just happened, but as fast as that blur and that projection and that like traveling happened, it was so crystal clear. It's almost as if you could see the fingerprint, the soul print, the energy print of the creator of each and every single one of those. I don't care if it was a star, a planet, a constellation, a nebula, or even, dare I say, a grain of sand. You could see the fingerprint of the creator who created that particle, no matter how big or small. And you saw it crystal clear. And I mean crystal clear. Like at the speed of light, beyond light. Like tachyon light. Like for real. And it's just like, yo, that was crazy. That was crazy. That was crazy. Somebody said, look, hold on. Somebody said a sensei. Like, bro, that's listen. Man, I'm not even listen, man. I know I'm not the only one who heard that. The hell with that. We not even gonna act like that. That did not just happen. Like that just happened. Listen, I'm not gonna act like that didn't just happen. That really just happened. Like that was dope, bro. Like for real, for real. Oh my God, that was crazy. That was crazy. So okay, well, there's that. So now let me ask you this, because I don't even know. Like we really could just close it down, but there's so much more than what I want. But man, listen, for real, we could close it down. We can, like, we can. But you know, we're here now, so we're gonna keep going. So when you said that, because I heard you say like you were talking about Lemurians, Lemuria, that was crazy work, bro. Like for real, for real. Hold on, let me. Okay, here we go. Because I got to get these comments up here. Let me get these up here, because this is live in real time. She said, Asante Sanaa, the ancestors are channel. Ooh, yes, sir. Oh man, oh man, oh man. And you can't, that's written in ink. You can't take that back. Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so oh man. Oh my God. Okay, so now we got to go like, okay, let's go Medu Neteru. Let's go language. Let's go hieroglyph. And then let's kind of bring this into like the parameters of focus, like a focus point, right? So I've been like tapped in like pretty much it's either all work, all study, prayer, all for ritual, like just focus. And it's like I see it and I see how things are changing. And I remember, I think it was a call earlier we did about the Matrix, and then I believe we got into it earlier this week as well. So in the Matrix, there was a point in time when Neo, when he knew that he was the one, right? He knew he was the one, and like things just slowed down for him. And it's like everything was just like it was easy. It was easy work, but it could have been like something like crazy, like whatever, jumping over buildings and stuff. And then you just went Super Saiyan on us and brought like invoked like literally invoked like all the guys from like, I mean, I'm talking about I don't know how many guys, like that was nuts. But so that just happened for real, for real. Let's go. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is good. Let's go. Since we're talking about like history, we're talking about legacy, we're talking about dynasties, we're talking about 50s, like 50,000 years. We're talking about like really like quantum, periods of time, right? You mentioned something about Nubia, and you mentioned something about Tasseti, and then you mentioned something about the bow, the land of the bow. We just had a live, I think Wednesday or Thursday, with the Big Chief Rise, and we talked about the movie The Immortals. And I think you and I spoke about it earlier as well. I'm like, yo, that's one. That's one of the ones. But after what I just heard, like you already wrote, directed, and played like multiple roles in that motherfucker, man. Because like that's what, like for real, like that's what that was, bro. Like, and so so now when we talk about Tasseti, the land of the bow, can you first break down what Tasseti is, and then if you don't mind, maybe sharing a little bit about what this thing or what this arrow or this bow, what all that about that bow means or is. And then from there, we can kind of just let the ancestors do what they do and the guys do what they do. But there's also a significance about where Tasseti is, what Tasseti is, and what they're identified as. And if I'm not mistaken, they're identified as the Royal A group, somewhere in Tasseti in the land of the bow. Can you kind of break down what some of the historical significance is of this place called Tasseti and maybe this thing called the bow is?
One of the things is that what made Tasseti so powerful is because the people who were it was masters of shooting the bow and arrow and hitting their targets from the forest away of places. I'm talking about they can be on the top of a tower. And when the Arabs, the Muslims would approach that area, or when they would try to attack those regions, you're talking about such accuracy. They can get hit right in the eye with an arrow. Now, Tahuti, the land of the bow, one of the reasons why it's called the land of the bow, it had everything to do with the fact that those were the masters of the bow and arrow, and they were also masters of being able to project. Now, the person who had gave me this reading and told me about my ancestors coming from those areas, right? They mentioned Ochosi. Ochosi contains the word Osho, and Osho is a sorcerer. When you're tuned in to the ability of utilizing the bow and arrow, your spirit is one with the arrow. Whenever you shoot the arrow, it's going to hit. Because you see, they weren't just working with a mundane science, they had a spiritual connection. Malidoma Patrice May, I believe he said that his uncle was young. When he was young, his uncle literally would shoot an arrow through the hole in the roof, right? And about an hour later, he'd come back with the arrow stuck in the deer. You see. Another thing is that I think is important because a lot of times when they talk about combat, they talk as though Africans were defenseless. They didn't have any weapons other than spears. You could do a lot of damage with a spear. Let's not get it twisted. But they were also master marksmen. Also, you will see where Set, who originally was from Nubia, Set had begun as being a Nubia deity. And in Kamombo, it was Set who was broken up into 14 pieces before it was Asar. Remember, before Set was looked upon as being a negative entity, he was looked upon as being the hero at one point in time. So in that area down in Nubia and in Tahuti, there was a time when Set was the divine that people wanted to imitate, right? Another thing is that when you look on some of the walls in Kemet, you'll see where Set is teaching Heru how to aim and shoot the bow and arrow. When you look at this, you understand that you need Set in your life to bring a little bit of discomfort, but also to fine tune you because you need a little bit of friction. And this friction will help you to become stronger, more focused, and have a better aim, and also work with the divine breath. Remember, Set's color was red. Remember, Shango's color was red too. One of the words for Shango is Shan. He's called the stone thrower, Jakuta. Shan means to split. In order for something to be split, it has to be struck. So we look at the connection between Shango. We could see the embodiments of both Heru and Set in Shango. Before he was connected with us, with Obatala, and he developed the white part of himself where he had the white bead inserted into his necklace, according to some traditions. He was fiery, he was red, he was unrefined. By adding the white bead, he became cool. So you have to learn how to refine yourself. Shango means to strike as well. Shango is the striker. He strikes with lightning. He has a double-sided axe. If you look at signs and symbols of primordial man, there's a book by Albert Churchward. You might want to check it out. Guess what? The sign of Heru that is found on the block is a double axe, just like that which is found in Nigeria with Shango. I believe that the Nubians, aka even the Makurians, who had come from that area, who my ancestors are, I believe that they were also the ones or part of the group that traveled into West Africa and bringing that knowledge with them. They found what is called the lost wax method. They found that in Kemet. They utilized that in Kemet. They also utilized the wax method when it comes to making statues and terracotta figures. They also utilized that method over there among the Nak culture, the Yoruba. So you see, there was definitely a connection. The Congo tradition continues to teach us about the everlasting cycles of life. We call that the Yawa. In ancient Kemet, they called it the Duat. Each and every one of us will chosen. And the way the hunter works, when you tap into that aspect of Ochosi within yourself, the same thing they did in Nubia, it's not so much that they went out searching for it. They'll sit still in the middle of the woods and they'll let their aura expand outward. And they're able to home in on their prey, on what they're hunting for, and they'll be able to shoot the arrow in that direction and hit their prey. That's the mysteries of Ochosi. Also, the ability to astral project is found in Ochosi. Osho means to astral project. Ochosi is said to be one of the children, of divine children of Iyami Osoranga, because the mothers also dealt with the women who can astral project and transform themselves into birds. I'm telling you, brother, my last teacher in the Kemetic tradition was so connected with Meru Neter and with the Neteru that he could be staring at you on the screen and could push you with his mind. And he'll tell you to stand still. And no matter how still you tried to stand, you'll feel a force knocking you off your feet like this. And you can believe me. You don't have to believe me, but I'm telling you this happened. When you have built up a certain amount of ashe and you are attuned with your destiny and you're connecting with the inner part of yourself that can astral project, you can actually literally send yourself out anywhere into the world and you don't even have to have a body to do so. Have you ever laid in the bed and found that you could not move? Remember, Ochosi deals with expansion of the aura, which is similar to astral projection of the Iyami. Ochosi, Osho, the sorcerer, is also an astral projector. You're in the past, present, and future. And even though it appears to go in a straight line, it's never a straight line. Everything is cyclical. So when you tap into that power and see that you're laying in the bed and cannot move, what you do is that you let yourself fall completely to sleep and let your ka separate from your body. And at first, you're not going to feel like you have any type of form. You can go into your living room. You can go anywhere. And you will notice that you will not have a body, but you'll be able to look around yourself and see 360 degrees around yourself. Why? Because you are consciousness taking physical form. I have been to places where I've been able to tune into a room of people, and I was able to feel my consciousness within the body of another person, walk up to him and tell him exactly where the pain in his body was at, and after that, send healing energy to those areas in his body. That's the true aspect of Ochosi. They hit your target. Do you know if you go into hypnosis, you know one way they put you in hypnosis is you can close your eyes. You don't even have to look at them. You can close your eyes and people can just do this and it'll get you deeper in a trance. You know why? Because with your eyes closed, you can still see them. Brian Beck would say, you don't have eyes. You don't see because you have eyes. You have eyes because you see. You're in the past, present, and future. We've been taught that we die. You don't die. You only shift to a different reference point, but you don't die. There's a you millions of years in the future. There's a you millions of years in the past. Why? Because spirit is unconditioned. Spirit's not limited to time and space. That's why you can go in the self and you can see the future and you can see things before they happen and so forth and have people tell you about things that are going to happen, which is why you have deja vu. Because you've already been there. The reason why a spirit can come back and tell you something that's going to happen or warn you about something before it happens is because it's not limited to time and space, and neither are you. Your mind can go just about anywhere. The arrow represents the mind. The ancestors left the Congo, they left Nubia, and they found themselves into certain parts of West Africa. And I think a lot of us are descendants from that migration as well.
Sure. So I've always, from the time I was born, as far back as I can remember, not quite sure the very first time, but after the very first time, I will never ever forget the embodiment, or I would say the presence of God in my life. The very first time that I saw the bust of King Tut, I knew that there was a thing or a being or a experience that was of the presence of a God. Can you speak to us about the significance of the Sphinx, the pyramids, Orion's belt, Sirius in the 18th dynasty?
A lot of times you speak about Akhenaten in the 18th dynasty, one of our favorite pharaohs, because it talks about him connecting with the Aten and solarization, which is the pathway to ascension. But let's look at this, because some would say that, well, those pyramids had already been. A pyramid is a four-sided quadrilateral triangle with a base 360 degrees, pi radius squared. Pyramid means fire in the middle. And the three pyramids do line up with Orion's belt, not only here, not only there in North Africa, or in Africa, but also the pyramids of Mexico and so on. The obelisks and the stone obelisks were designed to get us to look up. The Sphinx, Akhet, is also known as a cherubim. The Sphinx, you will see in a lot of occult teachings, have the head of a lion, the wings of an eagle, right? Sometimes part of a man or the trunk of a man, and also maybe parts of a bull. Why? Because on your zodiac, the zodiac, you have the bull, right? You have the bull, you have the eagle, which is Scorpio. Then you have the lion, you have the man. You have the four fixed signs of your zodiac, which is Leo, which is Aquarius, which is Scorpio, right? And Taurus. Those are the four living creatures in your Helio-Biblia called the Holy Bible. Those are the four living creatures that represent the throne of God. And there's also the mastery of the four elements. And what's found in your Helio-Biblia, your Holy Bible, which is actually the carryover, was that which came out of Alexandria in Egypt, was meant to create and turn a person into a king and to teach the mysteries of death and resurrection. All that going back to ancient Kemet, mastering of the four elements. But first you have to go to elementary school before you can graduate from the university. The university represents, which is the zodiac that they talked about being the heavenly kingdom discerning out of heaven. Haru rises above the zodiac as the hawk. And you have that which is the 12 among, around him, surrounding them. So each sign of the zodiac is something that you're supposed to master. The mystery of the Sphinx is directly connected to the calendar. And it's directly connected to one being able to become immortal and transcend time and space. The idea of the Sphinx is connected with the cherubim. And when you go to Babylon, they call the man-headed being with the lion's body, right? And the eagle's wings with the parts of the bull, that's the Sphinx over there. That's the cherubim. And the Ark of the Covenant that's supposed to be stolen out of Kemet, who many speculate could fit into the king's chamber. Once again, that's the symbol of the cherubim. The symbol of the cherubim is the masteries of earth, wind, fire, and water, which is Yahweh Vadhe, which the ancients used to chant, and a whole bunch of people around those temples would make all kinds of noise to make sure that nobody could hear the inutterable name, because it was considered too sacred to be uttered by those who were not in the tabernacle. It was about activating an aspect of your consciousness and being able to transcend, and also keeping track of time. So when you go into the Heliability, they talk about 24 elders, or should I say 24 hours, each covered by one of the 24 Greek letters. All of that came out of ancient Kemet. And all of that was talking about keeping track of the time, the calendar. So when they went into Alexandria and they took that knowledge from the pyramid and they tried to rewrite it, it became religion. That's why when you open up the book of Hermes, we call that the Hermetica. There's literally a part in one of the libelists which tells you, do not let the Greeks translate these teachings. And the irony is that it's in Greek, because from an earlier source, they were being told to not let the Greeks translate this because they were going to pervert it. The Holy Bible consisted of 72 books at one point in time in the form of Septuagint. How many conspirators were involved in Seth's murder? 72. Why? Because 72 represents the degree on the zodiac. See, this is when you have to get into interpreting the deeper symbolism behind the Bible in which they have given us, in which we've been, well, going by. In other words, putting on your coffee table and walking by, but never actually studying and reading. It was never meant for you to believe that God was some racist thunder goblin on the mountain to basically get you to see yourself as a group of chosen people. It was preserved because there was ancient mysteries that was hidden in the text that you were supposed to decode and eventually understand. Do you understand that one of the church fathers' name was Origin? You know what origin means? Origin is Greek, supposedly. But when you look at the etymology of the word origin, it breaks down to mean one who is born of Heru, or one who is born of Horus, because it's beginning stages of when the ancient mysteries of the teachings out of Kemet were being corrupted into ancient, your religious texts. You see what I mean? So that's what's happening. Origin, and look it up, he was one of the first church fathers. Origin, they refused to canonize him. Why? Because he believed in universalism. He didn't teach that you had one life where you just, well, lived and die and go to heaven or hell. He taught that all beings will eventually experience liberation and salvation. So around the 4th century of Chalcedon, the 4th council of Chalcedon, right? They called them ecumenical councils. It was around that time when they literally said we cannot have the teachings of reincarnation, and he had to get rid of the teachings of origin. They had to totally suppress those teachings. The reason why is because it took you out of the concept that you had to depend on Jesus for salvation. So they had to get rid of that and had to give Jesus a job. They got rid of the concept of reincarnation. They said anybody who believes in reincarnation, let them be anathema. So the Sphinx, the pyramid, all of that has a lot to do with what's into your Bible. There's the esoteric knowledge of dealing with the 4 elements of earth, wind, fire, and water. You'll also find the same layout of the pyramids that matched up with Orion's belt in Mexico, called Teotihuacan. You know what Teotihuacan means? It means the place where the gods are born, but it's also been interpreted to mean the place where man becomes God. The idea was always to elevate your consciousness into a higher quality. That's alchemy. And the teachings of alchemy is found within the Yoruba teachings. The teachings of alchemy is found in ancient Kemet. And yes, the teachings of alchemy is found within your Hermetic literature and also your Bible, the Elias Biblia. All of that. When you look at the Sphinx, it's all about the conquering lion of Judah. What sound does a lion make when the sun is above the horizon? What sound is that? Ra. the all-conquering Lion of Judah, is talking about Leo. And the 12 disciples were the 12 houses of the zodiac. In ancient Kemet was always about exploring the stars, but it's teaching you that your precious treasure of immortality has a lot to do with transcending time and space. What they have done is they have stolen your time and they've stolen your space by getting you under what is called a mechanistic model. You have to clock in. You have to clock into a 9 to 5. We're the only creatures on earth that have to do that. In ancient Kemet, the priests could literally be with their families for 6 months out of the year, right, in a shift, and then spend times in the temple for 6 months, and they can be married and everything else. They had time to cultivate their religious duties and also had time to be with their families. It took 40 whole years in order to become a priest. Now we look at the Dogon tradition. It also talks about the connection with Sirius. It talks about Nomo. It talks about the fish. What is Jesus' symbol? A fish. Ichthys. If you look 180 degrees on the zodiac, you see that there's a Virgin Mary, there's Virgo, and then there's Pisces. We are coming out of the age of Pisces, which is, I believe, into the age of what they call Aquarius, which means no, which means to know. So you're going from believing to knowing. So at this point in time, you're noticing that there's a whole lot of information out there. At one time, a lot of stuff was hidden from you. Now they're giving you an information overload. Your job now is to use the discernment, connect with your ancestors, awaken your divine memory, and be you, and be your divine expression. Because at the end of the day, the pyramids, the Sphinx, and all that, they're all here to remind you to come back to yourself. They say that pyramid consists of over 2 million blocks of stone. And some of those stones weigh 2.5 tons. They was able to get like 2.5 tons on a swivel. How did they do that? You see? So there's no stopping you. All you have to do is remember, because the sickness of the human condition is forgetfulness. When Osiris is broken up into many pieces and scattered, this is your consciousness being broken up into many pieces and scattered. Eventually, Set, who represents love and care and nurturing, helps bring the pieces back together. Look at what has happened to the black man here. It said what happened to Osar, his penis was swallowed by an octaranchus fish, which is the fish with a snout, after he was broken up into pieces. Set, she tried to give him a gold piece, but he wasn't no more able to live in this world. So he became the lord of what is called the Netjeru. He became Asar Neferkam, or Asar of the beautiful black, or Asar of the underground. It was Heru who took his spot. Every pharaoh, you don't see any pharaoh named Osiris, but you do see pharaohs named Heru. You go back to the Yoruba tradition, every Alafin, all the Alafins in Oyo, which is the seat of power among the Yoruba people, are considered to be an incarnation of Shango. Same system. Same system. Around the 1800s, 14 European nations got together, 14, and they divided up Africa. How many pieces of Sar get divided up into? 14. Now it's our turn to bring back all those pieces, because enlightenment and awakening comes with becoming fully integrated. As within, so without, as above, so below. Everything that you see that's happening around you is also happening within you. We're not separated from it. We're not separated from what we're observing. However, each and every one of us as individuals are equally as important. That's why we say in the 90s, they was greeting everybody, was greeting each other with Hotep. People started scoffing at that. But even with that, Hotep means divine offerings. Hotep is the same as an elbow that you give to an Orisha. Hotep means divine offering. So to say Hotep to somebody is simply giving them a divine offering of peace. Remember, I mentioned earlier that we have the divine utterance with Ofu Ashe. We have to learn how to pump life back into ourselves again and pump life back into each other. It's taught in Ifa tradition that your tongue can either make you or break you. They say also, one of the Yoruba proverbs, if you want to make a loud noise, you got to ring a loud bell. You got to put some feeling behind what it is that you're trying to manifest. What's on the seventh sphere? The seventh sphere is Heteru. Heteru is also connected to Oshun. Oshun deals with divine feeling. So if you want to manifest something and get it to come into being, you want to feel it coming into being. Remember, Oshun, according to Oshetura, is the mother of Oshetura, who is none other than Eshu Odara. Oshun's counterpart is Heteru. If you want to see something manifest, then you have to feel it in order for it to happen. You have to desire it. Oshun was considered the final ingredient that Olodumare put into creation to bring forth manifestation. Olodumare creates sweetness so that we'd have the desire to be, the desire to exist. And this is why you're here. The reason why you're here is that you desire to be. The mysteries of the Sphinx is to remind you the same as the mysteries of Aset, which dealing with the forces of nature. What does Aset say? She said, I'm yesterday, today, and tomorrow. No mortal has seen beyond my veil. What is the veil of Aset? The only reason why you can't see beyond the veil is because you identify with being immortal. The secret is by seeing yourself being an immortal. I know I done went way beyond. I was talking about an hour. I don't know. I just keep talking.
No,
I keep saying
listen,
stuff.
and you keep right on going. Listen, look, go. Keep going. Keep going. I'm listening. I'm taking. Keep going. We here. Keep going.
Right. The pyramid also has 16 folds in it. There's 16 Odu. There's 16 geomantic patterns. All of that's connected to the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. One of the things that we have to also understand is that occult science also work with geomantic patterns. They also do divination and they also make sacrifice. The Yoruba teaches that the white man was able to come out on top because he made sacrifice. But what did he sacrifice? You see what I mean? If you're going to build an empire, in order for you to build an empire, you have to sacrifice your own people. And you have to dumb your people down to at least the 7th grade level. Sounds familiar? The average American, right, has been dumbed down to a 7th grade level compared to how they were 50 years ago. This is why we actually went down on the charts when it came to being the highest of education. Educate comes from the word educare, which means to bring from within. So if you're not able to tap within and bring out the creativity, then how can you be God? We think memorizing a couple of sheets on a pamphlet makes you God. It's a remembering. It's a memory. And it's also to establish divine creativity. This is when you connect with the Oshun faculty, the Heteru faculty, is when you're able to create. This is what they don't want you doing, because once you start creating, there's no stopping you. There's no putting you back to sleep. And if you look through history, you discover that whenever there was an expansion of art, that's when there was a renaissance and a revolution. Because with creativity, it comes evolution. That's the God power that they want to suppress in you, is your creativity. They want to control it. They can't figure out how those hieroglyphics were chiseled into those stones and how they got them so perfect. They're still trying to figure it out. My teacher, Hetty Copper, said that the Wa scepter used to build those temples would hit the stone, cause the stone to vibrate, and they're able to move the stones until they're able to build the temples and the pyramids. That's how he explained it. So in order for us to move to the next level, We have to remove all the shackles on our minds telling us that we can't and look into what we can do. Abo does not just mean sacrifice. Abo is basically the alchemical process of transformation. Whenever you make an abo, what you're doing is that you're taking the necessary steps to transform the outcome of an event. Anything can be changed, pretty much, except the day you were born and who your parents are. You still can change the outcome of an event. This is why you do divination. Not because you want to give power to anything negative, but you want to say, okay, well, if I go this route instead of that route, I'll be more aligned. If I give the Orisha certain things will manifest. Why? Because they say the world is a marketplace, and the heaven is our home. What do you do in the marketplace? You exchange. So we're here to exchange energy. We have any questions, by the way?
I'm just soaking it all in, man. I listen. Look, I could talk. If you need a break, I'll talk. but this is dope. And I'm gonna talk because you probably should take a break, man. Because like you got the. Oh man, listen. Look. I'm okay. So we're gonna astral travel, family. Like we finna because listen, we finna astral travel. So like right now, what I'm seeing, I feel like a lot of y'all are seeing and feeling and hearing and sensing and all that. Like right now, I'm kind of like I just see like traveling across the solar system. And I see Sirius is partnered over there. I see Orion's belt. I see, Al-Natak, Al-Nalam, Mintaka. I see them, they're just hovering above, Khufu, Khafre, and Minkari. They're just looking because anytime, anywhere, any place, when you're traveling through space, the multiverse, the multiverses, the universe, whatever you want to call it, there's always some sort of self-identifying marker that when you see that, you know that you are home. So for me, like listening to every word that just utters out of your mouth, like that's, I know that I'm home because that brings me back to that stick. And see, like that stick. In one hand, that stick is held, excuse me, as a tapper or a thumper. But in another hand, that stick is held as a scepter.
Yes.
And so you have a thumper, you have a scepter, but then you can also have a interceptor.
Right.
In football, they call it, well, because in football, they call it, if you're on defense, it's an interception, right? If the offense is trying to score and defense is set up in defensive formation, and then the offense runs their play, they run their play, but the defense was in better position or in a better formation, either or one of the two, it all still equals the same thing because we're talking about the divine alignment in the eye of the essence of the creator, which is ultimately, we go back to the symbolism of the number 3. I don't know about y'all, but when I hear that 3, I hear Asar, Aset, and Heru to me. So when we talk about a holy trinity, we're talking about the 3 that becomes the 1.
Right.
People in this lifetime, within a couple of decades or so, will know that as the Matrix, where they say Neo is the 1. But Neo couldn't be the 1 because Neo came after the 1. Because the 1 that I know is the 1 and only. That would be the universal prime creator, the grand universal prime creator of the multiverse of infinite multiverses. But in this existence, I think most would agree, if not all but none, would say that that creator would be that which we call the sun. If I'm not mistaken, that sun that we're talking about, you call Ra. When you talk about Ra, you talk about the Ka and the Ba. The Ra, the Ka, and the Ba are set Asar Heru. I don't know what you're hearing, brother, but I'm serious when I say what I'm hearing right now. It's not scripted, wasn't written, but it's true. Because what I heard is the story of Heru. I'll be damned if I don't know Kabiesi Obakoso Shango. Through you.
The pyramid, the face of the pyramid, the triangle. There's 3 points, 3 lines, and 3 angles. That's 3 times 3. And that's the face of the pyramid. I'm going to show you something. You want to feel that inner fire? You feel it all the time. You feel it in your auric field. See this? You're going to take your fingers and you're going to go down here to this part of your hand. You're going to squeeze. You're going to feel this. And you're going to count to 10. It's going to feel uncomfortable. Just count to 10. With your left hand. This is my left hand that I'm squeezing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Open and close your hands 16 times. Reverse. Now bring your hands together and feel the energy between your hands. Pull it apart. Bring it together. Pull it apart. Pay attention to what you feel between your hands. The more you work your energy, the stronger it gets. Learn how to breathe with it. We always got to restore my. So whenever you're going to do and work with energy, bring them in closer. Between your fingers. And close. Pay attention how you feel and just sit still. You can do that. Just move. Take steps, moving like Qigong. Just do it for like 15 minutes a day and then try that after that. See how you feel. And do it every day and see how strong it gets. You are a pyramid. Within you is a fire. That fire is your life force energy. You can breathe that energy up. Breathe it up, back, and breathe it down, circulating it. Breathing in, breathing out, circulating it. Allowing the energy to go up, allowing the energy to come down, allowing the energy to come up, allowing it to come down. And it's circular. Call it the microcosmic orbit. Let the energy just run. Give your mind something to do. It gets away all the mental chatter and everything else. And helps increase your life force energy, your focus, your concentration. When you open up the Pranam Harum Ger, there's a part where Anui says, I'm the divine not within the olive tree. Doubly beautiful splendor more than yesterday. I'm Ra who established those who praise me. I'm the divine not within the olive tree. Doubly beautiful splendor more than yesterday. I have come forth. You have come forth. I have come forth, coming forth in this day. My hair is of Ra. My face is of Ra. My hair is of Nut. My ears of Ataru. My nose is of Kinsheps. My teeth of Khepra. My lips are bamboo. Greetings, greetings, Nikki Love, Wunam. My neck is of Aset, the divine lady. My 2 hands are Kenamu, Lord of Tattoo. My forearms of Neat, Lady of Saul. My backbone is of Set. My fathers is of Asar. My reins are Lords of Karaba. Women are say my womb is of Mut. My hips and legs are of Nut. My belly and back of Saket. My buttocks is the eye of Haru. My hips and legs, oh, I said that. My reins are Lords of Karaba. Not a member of me is without divinity. Tahuti protects my flesh entirely. I am Ra every day. Not shall I be seized by my arms, not shall I be carried away by my hands. Neither men, women, ancestors, or any negative ancestor should do harm to me. For I come forth advancing and I know my name. I am yesterday, today, tomorrow, million years. Seer of millions of years is my name. Traveling Haru. And then in the Purdue Haru, the first part, you chant Duare Katubeneftin Kutaptetin Pet. Duare Katatepen Min and the sword and Netjer Hatep and Netjeru Nabu, and it's a sword Netjer Hatep and Netjeru Nabu, and Netjeraki time Khepra and Kimam Netjeru. Kaku Benek Peswateka, Thea Sutin Netjeru, Sutin Nebu. Praise Ra when he rises in heaven's eastern sky. Praise Ra as she rises in heaven's western side. Behold a star describing all the offerings of all the Netjeru. Homage to you is Khepra, creator of all the Netjeru. It is you that shine bright like your mother, Lord of all the Netjeru. Oh, that's all. That's the first chapter of Purdue Haru and Gary, also known as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But we don't call it the Book of the Dead. We call it the Book of Coming Forth by Day from Night because it helps the spirit transition from this realm to the next. And by the way, there's 42 Netjeru, who are the judges who weigh the heart, and the heart has to be even and balanced out with the scale of Ma'at. Just like your left and brain hemisphere has to be balanced out, just like your heart, just like your Ori and your Okan. They call this the Okan. You have to have that. All that has to be in balance. That's what all this stuff is that they're doing in the Catholic Church. I mean, they took your stuff a long time ago and act like it was theirs. Kabbalistic cross, all that. It's always about awakening that part of your being. You see.
Yeah, so this is a very I say this with all due respect and all due humility, and I put that on my child of godness. I really am extremely humble because I feel like I ain't even gonna lie. Like, I'm just gonna say it though. I have to because we got the mothers here. You know what I'm saying? Like this ain't even. I don't even like. The mothers are here, and that's all. Anywho, and I mean the real mothers too. I'm talking about the real mothers. The mothers is here. So with that, we're gonna represent for the mothers. If I don't represent for nothing, I'm a mama's boy. We're gonna represent. So with that, this is it. Yeah, this is it. This is it. So let me ask you. Let's go to the Sphinx, and then because I feel like the tribe want to time travel. We were supposed to time travel last week. Things tried to get in the way, but we're gonna time travel today. So if you got the the patience, for us to kind of travel along, can you bring us through the Sphinx? Some will call it the can we go to the mysteries of the Sphinx and then maybe get a little glimpse of these lands that have been known for a long time? Some say Atlan, some say Atlantis, some say Mu, some say Mer, some say Lemu, Lemer, Lemuria.
You know what they all have in common?
I'm listening. I'm gonna get out the way.
Mer, right? So you have mer. When you spell mer backwards, you get rem. And what are human beings? According to the Comedic tradition, they're called the remech. The remechu are basically the teardrops of Ra. So you talk about Atlan or Atlantis, and there's many different stories about the priests of Solon, and that knowledge getting into the hands of Plato, speaking about the civilization that existed that had failed and was overwhelmed by the waters. Now, according to the Yoruba tradition, we talk about a form of Atlantis called the land of Olokun. The realm of Olokun talks about the watery abyss. Now, when you study ancient teachings that talks about the abyss, it talks about how going into water, right, is like a portal for going into outer space. You have to go to inner space in order to get to outer space. And that portal was actually in the waters. There's also talks about in the ancient world about before one incarnated into a physical body to see themselves diving into a pool of water. In the Congo tradition, they call this water, they call it the Kalunga. The Kalunga is basically the threshold between the living and the dead, and it's the watery abyss in which the souls come in and leave out. So let's say if you want to connect with the elements and you want to go back there, then what you want to do is you want to meditate on water. This is why you see these ancient traditions, or you see these spiritual traditions, when they take glass bowls of water and put them on the altar and sit and meditate on the water, and it gets you in a trance. Gaze into the water and you see all kind of visions coming to you because water holds memory. If you want to be able to connect with the Sphinx, you want to connect with ancient Kemet, right? You got to deal with the four elements. One of the major elements that people sleep on the most is water. That's why it talks about in the Yoruba tradition, libations. Look at the libations that are utilized to talk to the gods. It is an Orunmila made a special pact with water. The ancient wisdom keepers of Kamisha talks about a pact that is made with water and it's discovering the mysteries of water. Atlantis is basically supposed to have been a city or supposed to have been a civilization that thrived on water. Lemuria was also supposed to have been taken under by water. So that means that if you want to access these civilizations, where would you go? The same place that you look to see your reflection if you didn't have a mirror. Some of the most powerful spirits in African tradition are water spirits. Now, of course, the Sphinx deals with earth, wind, fire, and water, and he was submerged under the sand for quite some time. But what gives the age of the Sphinx away is the water weathering on the side of the Sphinx that suggests that the Sphinx was at least 10,000 years old. Yes, Olokun, the owner of the oceans. Olokun is the owner of the ocean. And it's through the civilization, or should I say the kingdom of Olokun, in which you go if you want to connect with space. Why? Olokun is also the Akashic records. Those who are children of Olokun have ways of tapping in to the memories that are floating around in the atmosphere. Also, Olokun represents wealth. You know, we're still underwater, right? We're actually underwater. We're actually breathing water molecules and everything else. Sound travels through the atmosphere because of the water molecules. What about 1,100 miles per second, something like that. You're speaking. The reason why you're even able to be heard is because you're still surrounded by the cosmic waters. You're breathing. You need water. You need moisture. You're not getting away from water. To access these mysteries, you have to be born of water and of spirit. You see. Learn about the mysteries of water. Because if you ignore water, you're missing out on one of the major mysteries. Why? Because your first baptism is through water and your second baptism is by fire. The earth was destroyed by water at first, and its destruction next is by fire. The first baptism, the first aspect of initiation is going through your trial by water. Your next aspect of initiation is going through trial by fire. Why? Because every 25,000 so-called years, the earth goes through a trial by two types of trials, one by water, one by fire. And for those who's able to shift their consciousness into another level, they'll be able to survive the trial by fire because they'll be in a certain level of trance, which will not allow them to be burnt. Hence, one of the forms of initiation is showing one that they can walk on water, they can walk on lava and not get burned, walk on hot coals and not get burned, as well as the rituals of Piran for the priest of Shango, showing that they can put their hands on burning coals and not get burned, and even shoot fire out of their mouths, the mysteries of fire. Why? Because one of the aspects of alchemy is to be able to go for your trial by water and survive your trial by fire. They say in the church that your second baptism by fire is receiving of the Holy Spirit. Well, what they're missing is that when you get into a state of trance, you'll be able to go through water, fire, and not get burned. And that's how you survive the planetary trial by fire. You understand? These mysteries were meant to protect us so that we'll preserve ourselves when the planet goes through these changes. That's what it's meant for. That's why you're supposed to learn about the 5 elements, is that brother just put on there. You learn about the 5 elements so that you can survive the changes of the earth, so that you can evolve. This is why the secrets are hidden in alchemy. Because every so many thousands of years, 35,000 years, the planetary circle explodes. The planet, the galactic center explodes and sends out clouds of uridium and rhodium into the atmosphere, knock out the sun, and come down to the planet and fuck everything up.
God did, nigga. Yes, sir. Shout out to my boy 100, boy. He got a song. I might have to play that one, boy. God did. Yes, sir. Oh my God. Listen, I got a question. I'm gonna take a question, and if you look, and I don't even want to interrupt, I'm gonna take this question and get out of the way because I like the question. It was a good question. I think a lot of people want to know the answer to this question, shit, including me. So the question was, shout out to T Wriggles. Question, Baba PTAH, what happens when you link with your higher self?
You don't have to think anymore because everything happens automatically. Your thoughts no longer become distant between your actions. You ever seen that movie, The Last Dragon, where they basically shot an arrow at Bruce Leroy, his teacher, right, in the beginning, and he was being shot blue arrows, and then he catches the red one. Didn't even know it was the red arrow. He asked him, "How did you know that was a red arrow?" And he looked at him. He said, "I don't know." So his master snatches the badge off of him, throws it away. He says, "I'm no longer your master." He said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because you knew without knowing." You see, the thing about it is that there's a distance between our thought and our actions because our minds have been conditioned to get in the way. Martial arts, yoga, meditation, and so forth is supposed to align you so that you no longer let your thoughts interfere with your actions to the point that you're hesitating on doing things that you're supposed to do that a lot of times take you out of alignment. But what caught you hesitating is basically things that you went through when you're young, the traumas that you went through that caused you to be misaligned. It was the traumas that you went through that caused your amygdala to take over, which is why when you and your significant other is having a discussion, an argument, creeps in, you might as well stop because you're no longer functioning out of your higher self. The amygdala takes over as a self-defense mechanism, and you don't hear what each other's actually saying. So you got to cool that down, right? So there's aspects of yourself that has to be reconditioned. This is what rituals are all about, because you see, you're communicating with an aspect of your spirit. And because when you communicate with your spirit, you touch that unconditioned part of you. That is the part that you want to activate. You see what I mean? But when you get caught up on what ifs and all that, that's when the mind starts getting in the way. And eventually, that type of attitude, that type of mentality is what put the gaps between you and your thoughts. That misaligns you with your higher self. When you're aligned with your higher self, a lot of times you be in a relaxed state. Have you ever been in a bed and noticed that you're just being downloaded or with all kind of information and facts and stuff that's coming together? And it just never happens until you just put yourself in a relaxed state. Why? Because your Ori is open and you're channeling. You see what I mean? The minute you start moving is when you start forgetting. So you need to have something next to you to write it down so that you can recall it. Because when the everyday, daily everyday things come into your world, right? You start forgetting because you start getting caught up in all these responsibilities, some of them artificial, that society has put on you, fears and everything else. You see? So they call that the Akashic Records right there. You'll know when you're aligned because there's no inner resistance. There's no fatigue. You see what I mean? Because your energies are lined up. Your meridians are flowing. Your life force is fully awakened. It's an awakened life force. A lot of people have a bunch of fears in them because they're scared, because they're tired. They don't even understand that there's the link between their tiredness and their fears. Fatigue makes cowards out of people. Shango Dide, Shango Dide, Shango Dide, Kabi SEO, Baba Shango, Itala Majuba, Gadaba Mojuba. I salute you 13 times, Baba. Itala Majuba, Gadaba Mojuba, Ashe.
Ashe, listen.
Kawe, Kabi Sileo. Yes. Baba Shango, Motupwe, Sister Wuna.
listen. So since Kabiesi and he been here, is here, and like yeah. So there's a Oriki because we hit a lot of Kemetic, and I want to go back. I want to swim in it all because I feel like we swim in the waters of Nun. We swim in the waters of Imoja, of Olokun, of the Aj. We swimming in the rivers. Oh my God, yeah, Oshun. Yeah, Oshun has sand in the Oshun Grove that smells like perfume. Like, no, not perfume. It's like one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful fragrance I ever smelled in my life. I'll never forget. It came from picking up the grains of sand in the grove of Ye Oshun. But there's an Oriki that I love about Kabiesi. And I'm pretty sure you know this Oriki. And if not, if we can get a Oriki, but I'm pretty sure you know this one. But it speaks about Kabiesi striking with like 200 bolts of lightning to break down walls and barriers. Is it possible we can get like a little bit of little Oriki being, what today is with Kabiesi and Ye Yansa? Maybe some Orikis or audible audio libations.
Wait a minute, let me look at something. I'll be right back. Speaking of that fire. I'm going to look at something. Hold on 1 minute. We could all just get together and do these Orikis. Raise the consciousness. Raise vibration. One thing that I was learning about the Oriki too, and something I want to talk about, an experience I had. And this when I do Egungun, because they say that Shango, they say, oh yeah, ushers the souls out. But Shango ushers the souls in. But another thing is that there's a connection, even though people over here, they say that Shango doesn't like the dead, but I beg to differ. I beg to differ. Because they talk about Oshun sneaking Shango out in a dress. That wasn't a dress, that was an Egungun outfit. I need a rattle. Hold on a second. You got a rattle? You always talk to Shango with a rattle.
Oh yeah, hold on 1 minute. I got it. Nope. Let me get that for you. Yep, I got it. Let's get it. We ain't gotta go far.
All the way go outside. Outside Santeria, Dache, Coco, and Ngogi, Koki, and Ngogi. Omo ala du fesane, Asere, Binuetala, Mojuba, Gadama, Mojuba. Olomo kilo, Pomere, Ima pues Shango Bomobo. Biosoro Asegidinian, Biosoro Asanian, the Ranku Ashe. Elder Echo, we praise on signs. Sign is Shango. We have the authority to do good. The pot of cornstarch, the child of the one that is loved by the multitude who is angry at doing good. 13 times I salute you openly, we give thanks, may it be so. Why 13 times? Because Shango is connected to the tortoise. Did you hear me? Shango is connected to the tortoise.
I heard you.
Rumula is connected to the turtle. Somebody, I think it was in Kosiempi, that talked about the turtle earlier. I wanted to say something too. He was talking about the connection between Rumula and the turtle. Well, the turtle On the back, there's 13 aspects around a turtle shell, which represent 13 months of the year, because Shango's daughter is Oshupwa, or Oshu, the moon, in one tradition. Why? Because that's dealing with the 13-month calendar that the Yorubas also had access to at one point in time. Wait a minute, hold up. The turtle. Remember I talked about the connection of the 8 immortals in the Memphite theology connected with PTAH?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
8 immortals, right? In the Chinese I Ching, it's called the Book of Changes, right? The Book of Transformation. What does Ra do? Ra goes through what? Transformations, right? Okay. It is said that the 8 trigrams, which is basically the Odu of the I Ching, guess where they were found? They were found on the back of a turtle shell. Okay? Orunmila has the turtle. Shango has the tortoise. Orunmila and Shango at one point in time switched places. The turtle has always been signified with divination. Orunmila was also the dancer at one point in time, and Shango was the diviner. And it said that Shango and Orunmila switched places, where Shango became the dancer and Orunmila became the diviner. Shango has a lot to do. If you get into Lukumi and you look into Santeria and stuff like that, they say that Shango is the king of their religion. Why? Shango represents power, but Shango was also considered by some the first diviner before Orunmila was. And its wisdom is in the back of a turtle shell. Same with the I Ching, which was discovered in China. They said that all 8 of those trigrams were in the back of a turtle shell. The tortoise and the turtle were symbolic of divination. Brother Nkosi speaks about the turtle drum. Is that the drum with the sections that kind of look like a turtle shell, and you hit it and it got different sounds on it?
I can't confirm it or not, but I know I've seen those. They dope too. Like they almost like sound bowls, but you can tap them with the mallet. You know what I mean? And they like chime. But I'm not sure if that's the same thing or not. Let me see. I think he just responded. No, but I'm not sure if it's the same thing or not. But I do know. Oh yeah, but T Rickles, yeah, Shango definitely means justice. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes,
Justice, government.
justice.
Yeah, warriors, orders, affairs, business, economics, like alignment. You know, like Shango Kabiesi is powerful, man. Humanitarian works. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes. You know, thunder and lightning. Also, the lightning of realization. Also, it speaks about the pot that contains the fire within the individual, called Shango Loro, which is the fire that rises up the spine.
Somebody asked a question about Kundalini energy earlier. Is there some sort of similarities or correlations between the Kundalini energy and this energy you're talking about that be rising up the spine?
Yes, That's what I just mentioned about the Shango Loro. You know, that's what that is. That's what that is. That's also connected to your inner Sumari and everything else, and something else is connected to is Agayu. Which is Shango's spine.
No, I'm sorry. I mean to interrupt. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because if I'm not mistaken, and Tribe, somebody please do the research, but if I'm not mistaken, there might be some volcanoes that been erupting inside like the oceans, or inside like coming from, I think, maybe inner Earth. Can you kind of speak about Kabiesi's father and the symbolism or the correlation between volcanoes and is it a Ganju? I got you.
Yeah. You know, so they said that was the father of Shango. Now they say that Aganju and Shango were historical, right? But there's also a story among the elders that talk about Aganju being something a little bit different too. And that is, it has to do with the man being able to cultivate his seed. Remember earlier I talked about the man. Hold on. Do you still got me? Because somebody just called me and kind of
No, we hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you also represents the cultivation of the seed. Remember, you also have a pyramid within you. So as far as men is concerned, now the male mysteries, right? Men have to also learn how to cultivate their seed. and they give them more vitality and so forth. So what a lot of people may not be aware of is Aganju also represent that, as well as the volcano. You know, now some places, and I heard by another person say that he did not originally represent the volcano, but since he represents the volcano here, we'll just go ahead and flow with it. You look at what they call Yahweh, right? Yahweh is said to have been a volcano spirit or a volcano god. If you go down to the Fan people and Airway people, the Airway people talk about a volcanic spirit by the name of Yahweh, and they've identified Yahweh with the historical Yahweh. So Yahweh, and you look upon that, if you just look into Iwe tradition, there's a rabbi, he's like a black Jewish rabbi who says that Yahweh was actually the name of the Fan people. He that owns the 17 thunderstones, father of fire, Shango strike with lightning, and the fiery scatter. 17 is also very significant because the 17th Odu is called, what we call the 17th Odu anyway, it's called Oshe Torah. Right? The number 17 is that number just beyond the 16. Here's the thing. There's always fluidity within the Yoruba tradition where they talk about the 200 and the 1, or the 400 plus the 1. They talk about 200 and the 1 benevolent beings and 201 malevolent beings. You want to know what's interesting about that? If you go all the way back to the Sumerian tradition, it talks about the 200 Anunnaki that worked above the earth and the 200 Anunnaki that worked below the earth. And what's also interesting is that there's a story about the Anunnaki also getting drunk around the time of the creation of humanity. That is, by them getting drunk, when they created humanity, they created humans with deformities and psychological ailments. And this is talking about the Anunnaki or the Anuna who got drunk in the beginning of the creation of humanity. You see how universal these stories are. So the question is what exactly are we tapping into? And that's why I mentioned about Odu, representing the holographic nature of the universe, because within every part contains a whole. That's what makes it a hologram. You see what I mean?
Can you say that one more time? I think some people might want to hear that one more time. People in the back.
What it is that your universe consists of fractals. Fractals are smaller, similar parts that make up the whole. In other words, fractals resemble the whole in which it makes up. What makes this a holographic universe is every part contains the whole. So, you know, your ear, this is holographic, but it's shaped like an embryo. You see what I mean? But you can basically put pressure on different parts of the ear to connect with different meridians in your body. Because that ear still represents that embryo, your fingers and everything else. Doing this does something to your body for a reason, okay? Your body is holographic. That's why I had you do the thing with the energy work at first, so that you can also circulate the energy. But one part of the hologram contains the whole. That's why we talk about everything being within you, that's around you. And that's why you can observe what you're observing and have an effect on it. It is your thoughts and your observation that's having an effect on everything around you. You're creating as you speak. I'm gonna look for something. 1 minute.
Yeah, this is amazing, man. Like for real. Like for real. I'm just thinking like this is what 3 out of the last 4 days, man. We've had some epic conversations, like epic. I can't even wait to go back and listen to them because I hear them just in real time, and it's like I'm amazed by it. Because one thing I love, and shout out to the tribe, man, because it's been a lot of love and support. You know, a lot of new people coming and joining the channel and the community, and it's just like it's a lot of love, pretty much all love, and it's beautiful. And it's funny because I was just texting with some family and they're like, yo, you laughing a lot. I'm like, yeah, because I'm looking at the presence of God. Like for real. Like I love it. And like I love it because like I feel like I am myself on the channel, but like there's a lot of elements or aspects about me that people don't know. And it's like I love to have fun and laugh. And some people say I'm crazy, I'm a fool, this and that. I ain't gonna disagree with them, but I'm not gonna agree with them either. But I just think like if you know me, you know that those elements are there. Because a lot of voices in my head. We was laughing a lot earlier on the last podcast earlier. Like we was laughing a lot, man, because it was just fun. This is fun to me. But at the same time, like I really take pride in like giving credit where credit is due. Like this, man, this shit is amazing. Like for real, for real. And it's like, yo, like that's just how powerful. And I'll never forget. And shout out to Professor Kaba, man. We here now, man. We got a big one coming Monday. A big one coming Monday in honor of El Hajj, bro. Like we about to honor El Hajj. I'm gonna get that set up depending on how, well, probably tomorrow because it's already late, but I'm gonna get it set up between tonight and tomorrow to promote it. But we're gonna honor El Hajj, you know, like the Honorable Malcolm X Monday on his birthday. And I remember the last one we did, I was like, yo, I don't know like how it always seems to like it just seems to like come together like just like it's just beautiful, like it's magical. It's, you know what I'm saying? He was like, it's mirror. I can't even say it the way he said it, but he was like, it's mirror. He was talking about myrrh, but you know, he got that dope, you know what I'm saying? Like the style is dope. But I was like, yo, that's what it is. Like that's what it is. And somebody asked a question earlier. Excuse me, I can't remember it verbatim, but it's gonna be a little bit hard to get to it, like digging in there. But they was saying something along the lines of they wanted to know about you, and like I'll just say, what is your perspective of the Merkaba when we talk about the Merkaba?
Merkaba. Mer in Kemetic means two things. It means to cultivate, and it also means to elevate. The pyramid is called a mer, or mer, right? Ka is the double, and the ba is basically the spirit or the higher self. Merkaba. I heard somebody say that ba means body, but I have to kind of shake my finger at him and say, no, the ba is not the body, it's the higher self. Okay. Merkaba means to elevate the ka into the oneness with the ba. You see, so you're elevating the ka into the ba. Here's the thing. Ka, which is basically your upraised hands and so forth, that means that which is on high. So each and every one of us have our own Merkaba. Now there's the Merkaba that resembles the 6-point star in 3D fashion when you have one tetrahedron that you're sitting in and another tetrahedron that comes down and you meditate within the two tetrahedrons and that forms the Merkaba. That's one of the ways to do it. However, keep in mind that everywhere you go, you have a Merkaba. Every individual actually has a Merkaba, and you elevate this through raising your compassion and also doing good deeds and also the feeling of love and joy and relaxation. When you relax, your DNA expands. When you are in a stressed out situation, your DNA contracts. This is something that they have studied, I believe, in Guardia Math Institute. Look it up about contracting DNA under stress and expanding DNA when one is in the state of joy and relaxation. The Merkaba expands with joy and relaxation, and like the universe in your DNA, it is voice activated. So activate your Merkaba by speaking great things about yourself. Or just simply say Merkaba activate. Speak it into existence. But you have to understand that what you say, you're manifesting. The word abracadabra means I create as I speak. It comes from an Aramaic word. I know I went
keep
on.
going. Keep going. My bad. Look, I'm gonna slow down with the comments because I don't want to interrupt the flow. I don't want to interrupt the flow because the comments is dope too. Like, so look, I'm gonna chill with the comments and you keep going with the flow.
Right. There's the Merkaba, and there's the Mer. The Mer and the Kaaba. What is it called? The cube in Mecca is called a Kaaba. There's also Metatron's cube. Metatron's cube. Remember, Enoch became Metatron after he was lifted and ascended into heaven. He was transformed into the angel Metatron. And Metatron represents the highest aspect of one's ability to expand into conscious awareness. It's another metaphor talking about how each and every one of us are also to take on the form of Enoch, become the initiated one, and transform. You see. So there's Merkaba, there's the Adam Kadmon. The Adam Kadmon is the divine blueprint of the individual, which also is found within what they call the tree of life, and was in the Kabbalah. Once again, you see Kaaba and you see Merkaba. You see the Merkaba because there's also the link between Metatron's cube and the 4 platonic solids, or the 5 platonic solids, in which you put in, and you can put all 5 platonic solids into Metatron's cube, you see. Or the flower of life. All that is connected. All of that's connected. See, this is connecting to sacred geometry and so forth. You see the sacred geometry in your fingers. When you look and you see the Fibonacci sequence in every finger point, every fingerprint. You see the Fibonacci sequence with the pyramids that are connected in a spiral. You hear about the Fibonacci sequence when you're talking about Obatala and the sacred snail shell that contained the sand in which he dropped into the ocean to create land in Olukun's abyss. You see the Fibonacci sequence when you look at the ram horn that's also connected to Shango and the concept of being able to spiral life into existence. The word spiral is found in the word, same word for breath. When something expires, it loses its breath. The word spiral, the spirit of El, is within the divine sequence, the Fibonacci sequence and the golden mean. The pyramids are also lined up with the Fibonacci sequence and the golden mean. And if people were to grow an economy, were able to utilize that form of spiral to grow their economy, the economy would flourish. Same with the education system. The American education system fails because they use the block method for too long. The reason why people can come from Germany and everything else and whoop everybody's ass in math and class and everything else is because they utilize what is called the spiral technique of education. You see, notice, you go to school, when you went to school, I'm talking about especially Generation Xers. When you went to school, they told you that you had like 5 minutes to read a whole freaking page or 3 pages and cram all that shit into your brain and try to recall what it means. Your brain does not function that way because it's adjusting and it's basically digesting information bit by bit at a time. In the first Odu and Ethiopian, the Yoruba tradition, it says bit by bit we eat the head of the rat, bit by bit we eat to the head of the fish. Why? Because if you try to eat a rat's head, that's called the utia. If you try to eat too much of that rat, you'll cut your mouth up because of the bones in the head of the rat. So you have to take little bits and pieces of the rat's head at a time, right? That's in the first Odu and Ethiopian. That's when you start something. You have to approach it bit by bit, but that's not what the education system did to you. They put a whole bunch of stuff and crammed all that stuff down your throat and said that you have to like go home and take this to your parents, who they were teaching a different method by the time when you got home, so your parents were stuck like Chuck too. And then you had to come back to school with it all figured out the next day. That's not how the mind works, and they know that. But hey, they say we don't want a nation of thinkers, we want a nation of workers. So what they have to do is they have to throw off your thought process. And people still think that way today. So how do you get thorough? Well, you got to go back. You can't just look at something once and then say you got it. You got to go back. Go back and research. Don't just search, research. Go back, right? The Sankofa concept in Africa talks about moving forward but looking backwards. The whole idea of going back and get it. Guess what? The Sankofa bird can fly forward and look backwards. But guess what else type of bird can do that? The ibis bird, which is sacred to Tahuti, sacred to Thoth, sacred to Hermes. The ibis bird can look forward and fly, can look back and fly forward at the same time. What's so cool about the ibis bird, it can give itself an enema too, but that's a different story. I don't expect anybody to do that type of yoga. But hey, you know, they learn a lot just watching and observing the bird, the ibis bird. It's the observation of nature. The true education comes when you can observe nature and see how it behaves. Not sit in the classroom all day with somebody telling you to write stuff on a piece of paper all day because you're not really getting it. You see what I mean? You got to get hands-on. You got to get out there and get busy, you see? Not just now, it's even watching YouTube. You got to get busy with it. It's cool. YouTube is not a bad thing, but you got to go out into the field. You got to get dirty. You got to get grimy. You got to feel it. You got to play in the mud in order to shape it. They call the universe the Tahuti and Neteru. The 9 and Ed. Everything is controlled and connected to those 9 and Ed, the 9 Neteru. Ra brings itself out of the nothingness, the primordial waters of Nun or Nu. Go back into the primordial waters. Close your eyes. Put something over your eyes in the dark and meditate. Sit in a tub. Imagine yourself being in the primordial waters and seeing things manifest. One of the initiations they'll do is have someone in the pyramid, but they're sitting in the dark and they'll fast, and visions will start coming to them after a while. Another thing is that you drink orange juice and eat oranges and stay up for 3 days. And your subjective realm will begin to rise up to the surface.
Yeah, this is deep. This is real deep. So, whew, all right. When we talk about the Netjeru, right, and then you're clearly very, very, very well versed in regards to the teachings of the Netjeru Volume 1, 2, and 3 by Baba Ra'un Amun Nefer. So he speaks about, I believe it was 7 levels of, was it consciousness or was it 7 levels of initiation when you start to take your travel down the spiritual journey in the Comedic culture?
I believe he spoke about 7 levels of realization. I got to get back to his book. I haven't read it in a minute, but I did read the hell out of it when I did read it. I'd say the number 7 is also the number of perfection. So in alchemy, it talks about 7 stages to realization, and it's all linked to, these metals. They link it to metals like lead eventually becoming transmuted into gold and so on. But it talks about the 7 stages being connected to 7 planets. But it also goes back to the 7-day week. But what is also number 7 is number 7 is talking about the 7 directions as well. You got north, south, east, and west. You have up and down. And you can guess where the 7th direction is at.
Would it happen to be something they call heaven?
True, but the 7th direction is within yourself. The 7th direction is in you. It's within.
Sure.
One of the reasons why 7 is so important.
Does that have anything to do with the 7 chakras and the alignment of the Kundalini chakra science?
To be honest with you, I believe that the Kundalini and the chakra system were at one time separate systems, and they got merged as time went on. Okay, but I'll say it does connect, but not all systems, in India agree with how the chakras work, because some of the new stuff, they don't agree necessarily with the rainbow configuration that they have developed now. But what I will say is that do represent the different frequencies that's also connected to your glands. The thing about it is that when you work with the chakras and you work with the colors, you work with the sound, you work with the Sanskrit letters that are connected to every chakra, right? Like in Kosi MP had mentioned about the Jed pillar, making one a Jedi. When you're working with all your chakras and you're working with the colors and everything else, you're supposed to be able to center yourself so that the energy will flow to you, right? And that's why you want to stretch and everything else, because what ends up happening is that your body starts to draw up. Yeah, 7 seas, 7 continents, and so on. Yeah. Then you got Pleiades, the 7 sisters. When you get into like some of the Chinese martial arts and Chinese meditations, you'll notice they focus a lot on the Pleiadian energies. Then when you get into the African tradition, they speak about the Syrian energies, septet, raising in the flow of the Nile, and so on. They call that, Dogons call it Potolo, the grain star, because it's talking about neutron star. A neutron star, a thimbleful of a neutron star is 100 million tons. That's how heavy a neutron star is. See? And somehow the Dogon knew that. This being in tune with the universe. How could they have known that if they wasn't one with what they were observing? The Europeans asked them, well, how did you guys know about this Sirius B? Because we didn't see it. They just said we looked. They said, okay, your origins are in Sirius B. How did y'all get here? They said we walked. They said they walked here from Sirius B. Like what? No spaceship? They said we walked.
Listen. Oh man, this is crazy. So, all right. There was there was a point in time where I used to write poetry, write a few rhymes. Yeah, I used to write a little bit. I didn't write a lot more, but when you said something about neutrons, right? You sparked something in me, because there's this poetry that I wrote a while back, but this whole conversation is poetic, man. Like the whole thing is poetic, and I feel like, I don't know how many like 80s babies in the chat. Is there some 80s babies in the chat? So I think the 80s babies will probably really appreciate it. But I don't know. But there's one that I have that I feel like, based on tonight and the synchronicities, especially with it being Oshe Shango Oyade today. Do you mind if I share just a little piece of spoken word, just like to kind of tap into like everything that's been going on organically? Like this is none of this is scripted, but it's so divine, man. It's powerful. But you said that supernova, right? Did you say no? You said a neutron star, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there was this piece, and it came from, I don't know, I guess spirit, but it's called supernova, and it goes like, I can see the light like lightning in a still frame. The universe has given birth to a dying star child again, shining like rainbow in the sun's shadow after the rain, creating order out of chaos, so peace we seek to maintain. Soaring free like a golden eagle on a mission for inner vision to attain. Spiritually razor sharp, helically rising up out of the dark. Like we wrap our wings around the globe to poetically play our part. With words, utilize messages linguistically, it's poetic art. Hieroglyphs. With a rhetorical cadence, verbally pushing the keys of your mind like Mozart. We write liberating lines with the intent to emancipate the minds of our youth with the truth that will spark a celestial curiosity, like the NASA Mars rover, to illuminate mind, body, and soul, to shine like a supernova.
Love it. I love it.
Oh,
okay.
Man, this is amazing.
Oh my goodness. Can I share a piece?
Please.
I did this piece maybe 10 years ago, maybe more than 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, listen. This is crazy.
It's called Solarization, right? Can you see me? Do I put on the screen?
No, I don't know. Like, what happened? You got to come back on. Somehow you went off.
1 second.
Okay, there. I see you now. I see you.
Now. I'm trying to pull it up.
I got you.
It seems like when I pull it up, it just makes my screen go blank.
Hey, we see you now, though.
Just give me. Okay, just give me one moment. I'm gonna just look for it. Hold on a second.
No problem. Listen, look, we could take a quick break. This is a commercial break, man. Listen,
I'll fade to black for just maybe 2 minutes. I'll come back on screen.
Man, listen, look, you earned a seat. You know what I'm saying, to get a quick breath, like some Gatorade, some water. Like, yeah, this is crazy. Like, for real. I had no idea we were gonna be going this hard this long, man. This is dope. Oh, for real. And we got questions too. Go ahead, Baba.
Just hear me out while I fade to black just for about 3 minutes. I'm gonna come back on screen.
I got you. So, I'm gonna chop it up with the tribe. Are you ready?
Solarization. Yeah. Hear me out real quick.
I got you. Go ahead.
Solarization leads to transformation, the combination between Eastern and Westernization. Solarization results in the process of dedication to elevation, realization to cleansing and purification, bringing manifestation of true revelations, the alchemical transformation of a lesser vibration. Removing the sickness of calcification beyond indoctrination is true education, melting away the ice of isolation, bringing balance and harmony to polarization while planting the seeds of building a nation. Solarization is divine cultivation. It is the key to cornerstone to self-liberation. Solarization is not manipulation, it's motivation. It is the inspiration and dedication to awakening creative imagination. It is the determination of mobilization, the path to ascension and glorification. It is detoxification of viral invasion, the actualization of unification, ability to bring stability to every nation, the occupation of elimination of starvation, cultivating the seeds that leads to divine germination while filling the children with ramifications. Solarization leads to appreciation. It allows us to see, be, and make free creation. It frees us from those who try to deceive us as the deviations, for it is the true emanation and not cheap imitation. To find out more, come to me for information, because I am the priest of solarization.
Yep, there's that.
Something I've been doing in a long time.
Me either. But the spirit bit. Listen, the ancestors. Look, I'm not. Listen, when they move, look. Hey, I'm gonna shout out to Baba Khepera. He say, "Look, I'm just the drum, man. They beating through me. So look, that's how I feel. Like the drums is beating. It ain't. Look, this ain't got nothing. Look, I'm just the instrument. The spirit is doing the plan, boy. That's real. The spirit is doing the plan, man. That's facts. Like for real. And the whole tribe said that too. Yes, sir. Yeah, this is dope. Like this is dope. Listen, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna gather myself and gather my energy, because if I don't, we're gonna be going all night, man. But I'm gonna go. I want to go here, and then we just see where the spirit brings us, because I can't wait to watch this again. Like for real, I feel like I could see us traveling on the boat of Ra, up and down the Nile, up and down the cosmos. Like that's what I see. Like for real, that's what I see. That's what I feel right now. And it's amazing. But when the name, we talked a lot about a lot of names. We spoke about Khepra, we spoke about PTAH, we dibble and dabble with Ra. But there's a name that is very, very, very significant that ties into, I think, everything that we spoke about tonight, and it buttons it up like the bow tie. You know what I'm saying? Or I should say the Kanaga mask, or like the crest, the tip of the pyramid. Any one of them, pick one. Or we could even go to Mars, the face on Mars. We can go to Atlantis, Lemuria, Agartha, Shambhala. We can go to Alnitak, Adonlam, Mintaka. I mean, we can go all over. Sirius A, B, or C. But Sirius is something that's like really, really, really magnificent. But I don't know how many people, like neophytes, or people just in general, who are awakening to this solar flare of consciousness, like the Super Bowl of I feel like the solar system is happening now here on Earth, in this area of our solar system. So how does the star of Sirius play a role into all this magical, majestic magi, mind's eye elevation that we've been blessed to receive from the ancestors, and I feel like the universal prime creator? How does Sirius play a role in all this? I feel like, just to kind of put the cherry on top of this this elevation that we witness here tonight.
The Dogon say that the souls of Africans come from Sirius, Septet, but it's also connected with the rising of the Nile around the time of July, where it's also brought into focus in the part of the pyramid. I want to say it's the King's Chamber that homes in on Sirius and Septet. But Sirius is also called the dog star that is connected to Ampu, aka Anubis. And it is through Anubis or Ampu and who we talk to if we want to have a guide to take us into the next realm. Remember, it was Ampu, aka Anubis, that chased me around when I first was about to get initiated into Ifa. So we call upon the great jackal that's connected to the dog star, so that the dog can come and take us to our next levels of initiation. Septet, aka Sirius, the dog star, is connected to our next stage of initiation, which is also connected to Aset. The Aset, there's an aspect of her that is identified with Septet as well, being a heavenly mother connected to the dog star. There's the dog, and there's the woman. There's the mother, It says in the Dogon tradition that it was the jackal that brought chaos into the world, basically as a result of the ripped placenta, the beginning of creation. It's time for us to get serious. It's time for us to get serious. And it's time for us to become connected with the seasons of the world. There's a calendar that is connected with the Sirius and the rising and the flowing of the Nile. Also, the triple calendar that was found in Kemet, that was used in Kemet, it didn't just work with the sun, but it also worked with the moon. It also worked with the star Septet and Sirius. There's a brother by the name of Patasika Sar that talks about this calendar, in which eventually I would like to perhaps have you speak with. And then he's the expert of the calendar, because it is true understanding time and transcending time, which will lead you to immortality. Sirius, in its 52-year revolution, Sirius B, has a lot to do with one's evolution and the raising of their consciousness, as well as the revolution and the liberation of African people. We have to be in alignment with our awakening as we go into the new year. The Nile is also within you. There's also the heavenly Nile, which is the Milky Way galaxy. So whether it's Sirius or Al-Natak, or the 3 stars of Orion's belt, as you mentioned earlier, in order to basically transcend this realm, there's a focus on transferring to Orion, Orion, your higher self in heaven, which is Sahu. Sahu is Osiris or Osir that you see above you. And it is said that the souls that travel from this realm, eventually, they come from Sirius, they stopped at Earth, eventually they're going to travel to Orion, where they will join the ancestors and become personified beings. And this is all pyramid text, which was written on the walls of the Pyramid of Venus.
That's amazing. Like that's crazy. I was trying to play a song because when you said Ori Orion, I could hear my boy 100 song Ori. Like I was trying to play it, but it was interfering with the clarity. But man, that's deep. Like that's real deep. Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. So I got another question. I got to bring this one up because she asked it a while ago and she threw a donation out to us. She wants to know how does, this is the Drum Speaks. She wants to know, how do I salute the 14th generation ancestor who is also an Orisha, a Gasu?
Are you familiar with that? I'm not familiar with.
I'm wondering if it's a Ganju though, because she asked me and I'm like, yo, I'm not familiar with that one, but I'm thinking it's a Ganju because, you know, certain deities are spelled different ways in different, you know, areas of the globe, you know. So like Eshu could be like what? It was an EXE in like, I don't know if that's Colombia or somewhere in the Caribbean, but you know, it could be spelled like different ways though. So I'm not familiar with that deity.
Sister, where are you at? Where's she at?
I'm not sure. I think she's in the States. Queen Mother Drum Speaks, could you please share where you're located at? Because she did share. I want to say they might come from I think it's on the continent where her ancestors are from. And I want to say, what tribe was it? Because she told me on the call last Saturday, I think she told me she'll share with us where her ancestors or her elders are from. But I want to say it's on the continent though. I just can't remember like exactly where on the continent. But Wunam said it's a Haitian spirit. It's a Haitian spirit. Would you be able to share? Wunam, can I connect her with you to get, because she really wants, she really needs to know that it's a deep like ancestral like connection that she's trying to bridge the gap with. And I didn't even think I should. You were the first person I probably should have hollered at to like deliver her that message. At the Drum Speaks, I'm pretty confident that Wunam be able to enlighten you with that information. I'm very confident actually. And I'll follow up I'm gonna keep rolling because I'm gonna follow up with both because I know. Okay, here she go. Here come on right here with that the answer to that question. So Agusu is known in voodoo as a royal ancestral spirit linked to the kingship, the leopard symbolism, and the spiritual legacy. Yeah, Dahomey.
Gotcha.
Okay, Dahomey. Yeah,
Dahomey,
that's
okay.
where I couldn't remember exactly where, but she told us last Saturday. Okay, I shared. Thank you, Wuna. That's what's up. Are you familiar with that deity, Khepra?
I can tell you this is that the leopard is also always linked to kingship and royalty. So this would indicate that she has a connection with royalty. You see, the leopard is also worn by priests. So either it's priestly or it's royal, one of the two. Leopards and panthers, the great cats. You notice that priests throughout Africa always sport like that of the leopard. Leopards and the great cats. The panther. A leopard is a panther. All the great cats. All the great cats are panthers. You know, among the Edo people, they have what is called the Ogiso. The Ogiso was supposed to be a group of kings that came from out of heaven and came to the earth before the dynasty of the Oba. So in the Edo people, the Edo tradition, it speaks about the dynasty of the Ogiso. The Ogiso preceded the Obas. But every Oba is also considered the incarnation of a leopard. My 2 cents. Also in Kemet, if you look and see who the Sim priests are, you notice that they're also wearing leopard skins, panther skins. So the concept of the Black Panthers is not new to us. What's interesting is that you come to the Americas, you see that they're wearing jaguar skins, the priests with the jaguar skin.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
Now, but since she's working with Ancestral, royal family of Dahomey, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you, and Sister Nikki.
Yeah, that's deep. Okay, here we go. She just responded back. So this is what we got. Agusu is the founder of Benin and Vodou. So he sounded like it might be like a man. Yeah, that's deep.
That's it, deep. Yeah, yeah. And the thing about it is that a lot of us have ancestors from Benin, you know, all the way going into Louisiana. Also, I know I had ancestors from Togo as well. And that all disconnected. The system of Odun, and that's something else I want to talk about. Fa, and that's the 16 Odu, and all that sort of thing. They got their own version of the 16 jaguars and panthers in ancient American time. Yep, it's all linked. Same science, but they had to work with what they had to work with when according to going to the different lands. Another thing too, these great cats also symbolize initiation. If you go to some of the ancient temples right around the world, you'll see that there are lions on the outside of the doors. And if you walk in, that represents you coming into the temple and you're ready for initiation, right? You'll even see this in China where they got dogs that look like lions on the outside of the doors when you walk into the temples. Same thing. And then when you go into the ancient Americas, they got 2 jaguars on the outside of the door. You're entering the womb, which is also the tomb, and you're going into initiation. To die as the old self, to be born as a new person. Thank you for that information on Agasso, my sister. That's something that needs to be, known because we got so much history and mystery to bring back.
Oh yeah.
Now, if it's an ancestor too, one of the things that I do as working with Egun and what I was taught on how to do is that you basically want to put put out some glasses, like 7 glasses on the floor, and put some white chalk, trace it, and put some fruit, put a candle, take a stick, hit the ground, and ask the ancestor to rise up. But you want to circle that area off because you don't want the ancestors to be all over your house. It's best to put them down in a basement or somewhere.
A garage if you have one, maybe a shed. You know, and the biggest thing, like you said, is to seal it off. You can make like a half sun or like 9 rays of the sun. But either way it goes, because, and that's another conversation. That's a private community call. Because that way we can really go because, you know, we're on Front Street. But either way it goes, the bombs that have been dropped tonight, the energy that's permeating throughout the listen, the energy that's permeating throughout Onile, boy.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's time.
boy. Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh man,
Golly
we got some more. We're gonna have some more discussions. You know, we're gonna definitely be coming. I'll definitely love to come back on the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Was crazy.
And maybe,
yeah.
And I mean, I kind of did a lot of freestyling, but I want to talk a little bit, you know, about the connection, more about the connection to Kemet, the historical connections, as well as the cosmologies, and maybe get more in depth with the connection between the Orishas and the Neteru, and so on.
Listen, look, man. Listen. Look, I just got to go ahead and take a quick break, and just give thanks, like for real, to the ancestors. Yeah, I feel you, Queen, and everybody else in the building. Like, yeah, this has been amazing. Like for real, raw talent all over TV. I think that's a new member, a new listener, watcher, viewer. But either way it goes, this has been crazy. But that's what's been happening. Like it's just been going up and up and up in regards to like the energy, that's been we've been blessed with. And it's so many different dynamics too. And like the brother, shout out to the brother we had on earlier, Sifu Oyi. Like he came in and was dropping the science of the ancient technologies of the plants and the mushroom technology, and it was just dope, bro. Like healing and like transformation. Like it's just been nothing but like just powerful healers. Shoot, I don't know what's like, man. Listen. Yeah, goddesses, like I don't even, it's like amazing energy, amazing, and it's surreal. Like, I can't wait to watch it. Like, I can't wait to like just be able to sit back and just chill and watch it, because like the level of authenticity, the level of authority, the level of genius, the level of love, man, it's been powerful. Like I mean, powerful, and it's, and all I can say is like it's this time, like the ancients, we're here now,
Yes,
welcome,
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
The ancestors have returned.
Oh, it might be a phone call, family. I don't know what. I think it's all like Ashe. Listen, hey, listen. See if you can go out and then come back in, because it's something like, yeah, we ain't gonna let it in like that. See if you can come out and come back in. Like if you could remove, yeah, because we can't end that like that. Nah, family, we're gonna try to wrap it up the right way. Yeah, look, that's real. The weird noise. Yeah, we done burnt down the dog on the lines, man. Still there. Can you log out and then come back in? It's an honor and a pleasure at the Drum Speaks. I'm glad that we got an answer for you. And we're gonna set up a we got a call. I believe we're gonna be doing it tomorrow. I think we're doing a private community call tomorrow night at the Drum Speaks. So excuse me, I'm gonna get the I'm not even gonna say tonight, but tomorrow I'm gonna get the links posted in the Patreon and on the channel. Oh, you can't hear me either? Let me see. Uh-oh. I guess they shutting the whole, they're trying to shut the whole thing now. Can y'all hear me? Can I get a 1 if y'all can hear me in the chat? Oh man, yeah, they're trying to, okay. All right, well, either way it go, okay, y'all hear us? Okay, cool. Appreciate you. So I think, I think, man, I think Baba came and burnt the damn lines down. You know, burnt the damn Wi-Fi down, man. I think he burnt the Wi-Fi down, man. They just shut everything down. They're trying to, but hopefully we can get them to come back. I appreciate y'all. I see them was. Hopefully we can get them to come back before, so we can go ahead and wrap it up formally, because this was dope, man. Like for real, for real. I don't know how many of y'all was on the one we had earlier, today, because we did a double header. It was dope, like for real. And this is it's amazing. Shout out to everybody that's been a part of this journey. Like it's amazing, and it's like I love just being able to sit here and be the conduit and just be the drum, man, just to let the spirit speak, and but to see like the difference and the energy and the ashe, the love, the reciprocity, all the love that everybody shows each other in the comments, in the tribe. Like that's dope, man. Like and for it to happen organically the way it did, yeah, that's real. T Rig was like it's amazing. And I'm just like truly honored, to be a part of it, because it's like we're seeing the manifestation of like the highest level of humanity, of creation, of civilizations, in its highest form and capacity. I mean, you got people talking about some of the most historical, like distance past, like from times immemorial, like times from like the beginning, before the beginning began, like type of just energy and wisdom that's being channeled. And it's amazing, and that to me, it goes to show that there's nothing like that we haven't already done. There's nothing that we are not, capable of, or that we are not, and the damn sure ain't nothing that we will never be. And so with that, man, it's been an amazing experience. I think he said, okay, I'm not sure what's going on, man. Let me see if I can see you. Hold on 1 second, family. Let me see if I can get Bubba back in here real quick so we can close it out properly. One moment, y'all. All right, family. 1 moment. I'm gonna see can I get them the link to try to get them back in real quick so we can close it out properly. I give thanks to all y'all too. I'm gonna try to make this happen real quick so we can close this out officially, because I don't want it to end that way after an epic conversation. That was dope. 1 second, y'all. I'm gonna try to get Bubba back in. Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah. I wasn't finna go out like that. We had to end this thing properly.
Right? Can you hear
Can you
me
hear me?
now?
Yeah, I hear you. We hear you, and we got rid of
All
that,
right.
whatever that boy. Look, those were look, those were the ancients, the agents, like trying to crash them. They was trying to come through us, come for us in the Matrix, man. We had we had to get rid of the
Right.
bugs. We had to pull
That's
them
like
out and
that.
throw them.
That's like that's enough. You know,
Yeah, yes,
he
sir.
messing up our equipment. We won't be able to listen
Yeah,
in
yeah,
too
yeah,
much
yeah,
longer.
yeah. Nah, yeah. We couldn't do that. We couldn't do that. We couldn't leave off like that. We had to do that properly. We had to have a proper
Yeah.
send off. We can't just shut it down and go to bed like that. Nah, we got to
Indeed.
get this the right way.
Indeed. For real. For
Yes,
real.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, but listen, so now with that being said, man, listen, whatever you got for the tribe, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like you whatever. Like let's just do it because this was dope, bro. Like for real. This was man, this was dope. Like for real, for real. Like I'm giving thanks for the whole tribe. I know everybody feel the same way I do. This was dope. Like for real, for real, for real, for real, bro. So
For sure.
yeah,
I appreciate
yeah.
that. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it. I wanted to
Hmm.
find something, maybe go try to find something. Maybe I'll find another piece. Give me one moment though.
Yeah. Go ahead, go ahead. I'm gonna chop it over the tribe. Now we got you back. But
All right, cool.
yeah, family. That was dope. That was dope. Like that was epic proportions. Shout out to everybody, like I said, for holding it down with us, especially doing 2 for 1 today. We had to do a double header, man, but it was worth it. Because of the energy exchange. And so I give thanks again. And yeah, comments, y'all. What do y'all feel about this energy exchange, the EFI and Comedic connection? I knew it was gonna be dope, but I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know it was gonna be like this. I did not know that, and but I'm proud. I'm a proud participant, like because this was intellectual libations at its finest. You know, it really was like intellectual libations. It was a guy cipher divine. I feel like we was in the divine cipher, you know, with the God essence. Okay, you back?
I'm back.
Let's get it, man. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it.
All right, all right. Well, let me go ahead and send you off with some peace and love, and we will acknowledge the Netjeru, acknowledge the ancestors. You know what I mean? So give thanks and praise. We call upon those ancestors. We summon the holographic genetic memory of the ancestors within our DNA. We call upon those ancestors and the presence of those spirits of long ago. May our ancestral memories be activated. It's the ancestors of our mothers and fathers that are present. It's the ancestors of our grandmothers and grandfathers that are present. We give thanks and praise those ancestors who are healers, doctors and nurses, root workers, spiritualists, soldiers, sailors, veterans, liberators, warriors, freedom fighters, laborers, technicians, farmers, and hunters. We call upon those ancestors who are mathematicians, linguists and teachers, biologists, psychologists, organizers and leaders, architects, inventors, artisans and readers, astronomers, carpenters, and ancient wisdom keepers. We give thanks and praise to the ancestors. We give thanks and praise to all the Orishas. We give thanks and praise to Orumala. We give thanks and praise to Eshu. We give thanks and praise to Obatala. We give thanks and praise to Yemoya. We give thanks and praise to Oshun. We give thanks and praise to Ogun. We give thanks and praise to the Abeki. We give thanks and praise to Shango and Oya. We give thanks and praise to all the Orishas. We give thanks and praise. Ibashe Bogbo Orisha. We give thanks and praise to Baba Eshu. We give thanks and praise. We give thanks and praise to all the Oris of those who are present. We ask that each and every one of our Oris is elevated to the next level. May each and every one of us be blessed. May each and every one of us be prosperous. May all of us return with long life, strength, and health. We say Ashe.
I
In
say
Butuau,
you.
Anginter Samen Ra, in Butuau, Itaim Heru, Itaim Oser, Itaim Oset, Itaim Nebetet,
Mm.
Itaim Kenemu, Itaim Neteru, Nukpu Neteru Heteru, Amin Hotep, Khepra PTAH, Suteneter, in
Mm.
Butuau Winter, Anginter Samen Ra, in Butuau Winter, Ita Nebeteshera. Ibashe Olodumare, Ibashe Olorum, Ibashe Leda, Ibashe Supa, Ibashe Orum, Ibashirabo. Talk to you soon, family. Much love. May each and every one of you walk in protection, financial stability, and abundance. I see Odabo.
Ashe Tribe, we out. I love y'all. Hey, hashtag we here now. Always have been, always are, always will be. We out. Peace. Odabo. Modukwe.
Odabo.
Asheo.
Sure.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé sàpò ìyàgbọ́ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo ṣe ní gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́ forsake not your ancestors and praise your